comp plan to Ecotoberfest, and new this year was Earth Day Every Day, where we had 2,000 attendees in partnership with Lafayette. We maintained 19 regional partnerships, ranging from Colorado Energy Office, Boulder County, and Denver Region Council of Governments, or DRCOG. And we helped advance 5 active projects across the departments, such as internal decarb comp plan, and we've been engaging with community development on energy code. That said, 2024 was also a year of transition. In June, I moved into the manager role, and Logan started with us in late July. So a lot was done in 2024. It's been a productive year, and we really hope to carry our momentum forward. Okay, so this one I kind of nerd out about. So this is our policy in motion slide. So community-wide emissions are down 14% from 2016 to 2021. Okay, you guys, that snaps. So it's really exciting. Preliminary results show an even greater increase from 2021 to 2024. This highlights our regional collaboration with Xcel Energy to help green our grid, stacked with the engagement of our residents in our programming. This is true progress. So every home that's electrified in Louisville counts, no matter how small. Every little action matters. If we're pivoting to waste next, the residential waste diversion rate is currently at 43%, according to Republic Services. This is a higher diversion rate in the county, beat only by Longmont and Boulder. So this is showcasing the use of our 3-cart system provided through our waste contract, and that our residents have been able to navigate the new and often confusing compost changes that went into effect in 2023. So again, amazing.
Can I interrupt you for just a second because we've got a question on that.
No, I think it's just Caleb that showing me that he was back. He dropped off for a little bit, and now he's back.
Okay, go ahead, sorry.
No worries. The last one on this slide is EV adoption. So EV adoption is climbing. As of 2024, over 10% of registered vehicles in Louisville are electric. So that's highlighting the shift in the market, moving from internal combustion engines to electric. So it's amazing to see our residents take that on. And lastly, in a time when the world can feel overwhelming, these stats really do highlight progress being made within Louisville. So next, we're going to move into our strategic priorities. Our work is guided by 3 strategic priorities. These priorities are driving measurable emission reductions, again, reducing 60% by 2030, carbon neutrality by 2050, advancing the community well-being through programming and events, and then leading through example of our municipal operations. And then we'll take a closer look at each of these in the next few slides. Our first priority is reducing greenhouse gas emissions. We are developing and maintaining a robust emissions inventory focusing on the high impact sectors such as transportation, stationary energy, and waste. Every decision we make is driven by data and aimed for measurable results. In fact, one of the largest projects that we're working on this year is the creation of the first local government operations greenhouse gas inventory, meaning for the first time, CO2 emissions linked directly to our municipal operations will be shared. So this includes calculating employee commute, facility energy use, and waste collection, whereas other numbers have just showed our energy use. So this is a more holistic look at what's going on. And for the first time, we are updating our own community-wide greenhouse gas inventory. This will be our 3rd for the community-wide sort of lens. By moving it in-house, this gives staff a deeper understanding of the data as well as ownership. So it allows us to model future emission reductions via programmatic impact, which you guys are likely to see in hopefully next year. So to look forward to. Our next priority is advancing community well-being. So this one's all about people, all about our residents. So we're designing inclusive programs and events that connect residents to the resources they need to make sustainable choices. And we're co-creating with our regional partners to ensure that our local work reflects needs and also builds in long-term resilience. Finally, we're embedding sustainability into our own operations, from the city fleet and facilities electrification to one day hopefully looking at sustainable procurement policies. We're also committed to transparency, regularly sharing updates and stories to empower the community. An example of this is potentially showcasing how some of our directors are walking the walk via taking their e-bike or transitioning to an EV. So stay tuned again. So now on to our program approvals. First, we have the hard to recycle voucher. So this pilot program replaces the city's one-day drop-off event with flexible year-round access to EcoCycle Charm. This would be funded entirely through bag tax. It is $37,000, where we can serve up to 1,320 residents, which is a significant increase over the previous 500 that have accessed the one-day event. For the process, residents will sign up via Eventbrite and receive their $25 voucher via email, which will then be scanned at the entrance of EcoCycle Charm. This voucher approach reduces weather-related cancellations, which we did have in 2024, and supports a greater participation, doubling the amount of residents who can access these services. We also were unable to reschedule the event due to our partners needing a year-long lead time to make sure that they have access to the end markets and materials. And then ongoing funding for this program could either come through bag tax or discussions around the solid waste fund. And then again, just to reiterate, the key benefits of this program would be replacing the one-day event with flexible year-round access, allowing residents to visit Charm when convenient, as well as encouraging residents to become more comfortable with EcoCycle Charm and really engaging them to go more often, and then influencing a greater waste diversion. The voucher also expands our service capacity from approximately 500 residents up to that 1,320, increasing participation and overall waste diversion. This means an increased waste diversion through expanded collection. So right now, if we have the one-day event, we can only collect limited items. So that means paint, lawn equipment, e-waste, to name a few. Whereas with this voucher program, residents are able to bring some of those other materials as well. So think appliances, plastic film, lumber, mattresses, some of those really hard items to get rid of. And then again, this just reduces our vulnerability to having to cancel the event due to weather, which we did have to do. Next, I'll hand it off to Logan to talk about the commercial sustainability rebate.
So commercial sustainability rebate revamp. This is kind of a newer program that we're looking to launch in a sense. This was one of the bag tax programs. So back in 2021, Louisville passed its bag tax primarily to reduce a lot of waste and offer opportunities to reduce particular waste in our community. The purpose of this particular program was to help local businesses implement sustainability projects and reduced waste through their waste streams. However, this particular rebate is going to look to consolidate those like 5 different programs within this one. Being that this was the only really successful program that we've seen over the last couple of years from those that we've offered. And so we're looking to consolidate it to a single high impact program that's going to allow a little more of a holistic aspect to what businesses can do in terms of diverting waste or sustainability initiatives in our community. So we launched this pilot program in which about 10 different businesses took advantage of this. So this was offered through a $1,000 grant structure, which was administratively heavy on our end. And so by consolidating this, we're looking to partner with PACE, Boulder County PACE, in the sense that they would administer a lot of the funds to businesses. However, we would be able to maintain everything on the front end in terms of programming. And that would administratively take a lot of weight off of our shoulders. And then it was acknowledged through businesses and conversations with Economic Vitality that the $1,000 grant was really not enough to make a high impact for a lot of businesses. $1,000 doesn't go a very long way. A lot of our community members are really concerned with decarbonization, electrification initiatives. And so this grant structure allows us to kind of open that up to not only waste, but what are those other waste points in our community in terms of electrification, for example. And so, yeah, that clear guidance from businesses as well as Economic Vitality really helped us to make this decision around how we're going to revamp this program moving forward. So with this redoing of the program, we're looking to launch a tiered rebate structure. We're looking to offer 5 $1,000 rebates, three $5,000 rebates, and two $10,000 rebates. I will add, this brings the total budgeting to around $40,000, primarily through back tax funding. However, we are in conversation with Pace over how much that administrative fee might be. So we're just kind of looking to finalize some of those numbers in the future. And so really, we're looking at designing this program to be scaled in the future and to be able to be nimble as is required sometimes with such a rebate program. This offers more opportunities for businesses to have access to higher funding for those higher impact projects to make more of a change and impact for our local businesses. Really, this is gonna be for like broader, smaller projects to more high impact projects. So think like, somebody getting waste services for a few 6 months with $1,000, or even saying that they want to do a waste service contract for upwards of 3 to 5 years potentially. Or adding these on to some of our decarbonization electrification rebates that are also added with Pace. So that's one of the ways in which we're able to be nimble with this particular rebate, is that it can stack on some of these other rebates, allowing for a much larger pool of funds that businesses can access. And so furthermore, this is a streamlined process administratively for both staff and partners, being that Pace already has a very involved with our business community. And then we are looking to also grade these rubrics and scoring with economic vitality. So we'll be in a lot of conversations with them about who will be receiving funds, grading these over the long term. And so it just increases the transparency and consistency, not only with staff, but as well as businesses in terms of expectations and what the community can expect in terms of these rebates. Some of the implementation needs, there's a need to develop a lot of different branding, outreach materials. So this would include a lot more transparency on our website about what these rebate structures is going to be. A lot of this information in terms of the grading rubric will be public. And so a lot of this criteria will be kind of changed from what we've been doing for the last year and a half. And then grant applications will be graded jointly with sustainability and economic vitality. Some of these projects are going to be evaluated primarily on these 4 different subgroups, as you can see here. So GHG emission reduction, waste diversion potential, feasibility and organizational capacity. So you think of a business saying, hey, we would like to apply for this rebate. Okay, well, what's your capacity to actually put this project and bring it into fruition? And then finally, just some of those community and economic benefits. So tying this into some of economic vitality's goals as well. So we can have a little more synergy in some of those goals between our 2 divisions. And finally, we really appreciate you speaking with us tonight. Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Good question. Well, actually, it's good.
It looks like he's frozen.
You're on
Sorry, what, did you call on me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Apologies, I couldn't hear you, Mayor. Just curious, in that last presentation, Logan, are we still contemplating, and if you don't know, it's fine, but are we still contemplating the eligibility being those that pay into the bag tax fees are the only businesses that are eligible to receive the grants, or are we imagining to expand that to a larger group?
So thank you, Caleb, for that answer. For our previous programming, at first, we were only considering businesses that were paying into bag tax. However, under previous direction, we did open it to all businesses within Louisville. So we would maintain that same eligibility as all businesses within Louisville can access despite paying into bag tax.
Great, thanks for that clarification.
Other questions? Yes.
I just have a couple of quick questions. One, that's recent
So it did drop. So when the changes went into effect, it did drop. However, we've seen the number increase. I will say our residential waste diversion rate of 43% is higher in the county. However, our commercial diversion rate sits around 18%, which is not great. Granted, they aren't required to compost or recycle, so that's where a lot of that stands. But the compost changes did cause changes at first.
Okay, then second.
Yeah, of course. I do know Councilmember Cooperman had shared that with us, and we were looking at including that in our sustainability revamp. So Aaron's including that in our new pages.
Okay, and then from the one that fire event.
Yes.
What?
We're hoping to, I know historically PDC's been, we haven't really been able to connect a lot with them. And so we're really looking to do a lot of community outreach with this event. So we're really looking to have not only that, but offer waste diversion services that historically that population has not been able to access very well. And so bringing some of those services to get rid of or recycle some of those larger hard to recycle items, appliances, mattresses, etc.
Okay.
And then really trying to build trust. I think that's like a huge one that it's really hard to measure, but I think just really working to engage the community in a meaningful and respectful way is gonna be great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Other questions? Yes, Councilman Cooper.
Thanks. First I'll ask about the hard to recycle voucher program. So one question was, you noted that we previously funded this through the solid waste fund. I was wondering about the switch to using bag tags.
We're just looking to pilot the program this year without having to do a budget amendment with the solid waste fund. So currently within bag tax, we have a waste reduction budget for $60,000. And right now that would go unused because we'd be launching the commercial sustainability rebate in 2026. So we're looking to repurpose those funds for the hard to recycle pilot program this year. And then we could explore other options.
It's very helpful. Is there any reason that we can't just hold on to the bag tax funds?
We could work with finance to roll them over if we want to. So if we don't use the full 60 or if we use the 37, we would roll the additional amount over, pending finance.
Okay. And then just kind of curious about the implementation a little bit, like, so, if someone gets a $25 voucher, but they only use $13, what happens to the remainder?
It would go away. There's no way for EcoCycle to track the remainder that they would have as their voucher. There's no way it would be like a Visa credit card. Like it wouldn't work that way. We'd love for it to, but we're just not quite there.
But could you go like multiple times and use?
It would be up to EcoCycle if they think that their staff can do that. So pending approval, we'd be working with them to see if they can build that in, but there's no guarantee.
I don't know. Be nice to try to figure that out. Another question was, about 1,000 vouchers. Have you thought about trying to sort of equitably distribute them somehow?
So what our communications plan, we still have to work on it for sure, but I do think trying to access our PVZ neighborhoods again, and then also our Kestrel neighborhood, where we could try and engage with those folks and try and have them sign up would be great. Otherwise, we do plan on sending it to the previous individuals who signed up for the hard to recycle event, who couldn't access the services when they signed up due to cancellation.
And then just one more question about that program. I don't know, the fee that they charge, the $4,000 seems a little bit high. I suppose that's not really negotiable.
I haven't tried negotiating it, but maybe it's time that I try.
Let me ask about the commercial rebate. So, I guess one question is, are we using pretty much the remainder of the bag tax money to fund that program?
What do you mean by
Well,
remainder?
so we're using some bag tax money for the recycle vouchers. So I understand Logan's position is partially funded by bag tax.
Right.
So after those things and whatever else, is that 40,000 pretty much the rest of it?
Not quite, no. So what we have is the specialist position is partially funded, as you mentioned. The hard to recycle voucher is part of the already budgeted values in 2025. And then there's already 60 grand budgeted again in 2026 for the commercial sustainability rebate. And then we're projecting just using 40 to ensure that we build in room for an administrative fee without having to go for a budget amendment. So, and then we're expecting about 100,000 annually from bag tax is kind of where we're sitting, but I believe Ryder you can correct me, is it, we've taken in around 600 to 700 total of bags? I can't remember what you said, maybe
I don't have
5.
that specificity offhand, but what you're saying is accurate, kind of
Yeah.
running it through 2026. It is budget. Beyond that, we may need to right size to our projected revenues at $100,000 per annual starting in 27.
So, I mean, I really like this program, the idea of this program. I don't know, I feel like we discussed this to some extent, sustainability board, and I feel like it's taken a while for this to come to fruition. Wondering, is there any particular reason for that?
Just delay in terms of ensuring we're following the proper process for program approval, so here we are.
And one last little question. I guess you'll kind of see how it goes, but have you thought about sort of allowing larger grants in exceptional circumstances?
We have, yeah, so we've toyed with the idea of offering larger grants than even 10,000, I think. We're looking to pilot this for the first year and see how it goes. I think we're one of the only, if not, or one of the few, if not the only, that is looking to launch this sort of commercial sustainability rebate in the Front Range. And so we've been in conversation with a lot of different organizations from the state level to local municipalities on how this might work and how we can implement it. And so we're looking at larger amounts to see if we could offer that larger impact, but I think right now we'd like to look at what we're doing now, yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
That's one.
You. And the ideas. That's nice. So. So also.
Yeah, so we would be able to work with them directly to see, I mean, we're approving the projects also in-house, so we'd be able to see what the programs are or projects and follow those through implementation. And then we're able to essentially hopefully calculate some of the GHG emission reduction if we're going for like that specific data number.
And you were mentioning that one of the changes to get to staff. Can you do the sense that?
Yeah, so in a local government operations inventory, what you're looking at, so outside of just your facility energy use, so think natural gas and electricity, you're looking at more of a holistic kind of what's going on in your municipal operations. And one of those areas is your employee commute. So we'd be working with HR to send a survey out. HR hasn't heard this yet, so it's all brand new. We're still working on the details. But we would send a survey to our employees, and then for those who take the survey saying, hey, I have this kind of vehicle, I drive 40 miles one way, I come in 4 days a week. We are then able to take that data and then we're able to apply a proportion to it to account for our full staff. And then we're able to calculate greenhouse gas emissions based on that, and then hopefully advise on additional strategies to reduce those emissions in the future.
Right. And then with the hard to recycle voucher program is see say halfway through the year have taken advantage of that voucher. And if they haven't used them or not enough people signed up, like send a reminder so that people know to still use it in that same, in that year period.
Yeah, so we'd also be looking to have the contract with EcoCycle go for 5 years to ensure that if the full 1,320 vouchers weren't used within that full year, they could still access it. And then EcoCycle is able to track the data for us, so they're able to see who has come through and how many. And then for folks that haven't used it, we're able to send emails via Eventbrite being like, hey, reminder to use your voucher. And then for those that have come through, we're able to see what they dropped off, so we can calculate some event waste diversion.
And you were mentioning you were gonna target a couple of communities. Would it be possible to broaden that and target all multifamily communities before we go to single family residential?
Yeah.
That has like better waste, like disposal access.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, actually, one last question. Are we gonna continue to print and supply, like provided the city hall stuff, the reusable bags? I get so much positive feedback and when people are saying positive.
So we did used to have them. I will say that was a $10,000 program to just have them available in the breezeway. So looking at all our other options, we decided to not move forward with it, but we have for swag for our events. So for folks who do engage with us at tabling events, they can take a bag or two.
Let's say to Councilmember Good's point, I mean, if you're not using. I personally think that would be really good. It's PR as well as, you know, testing.
We'll think about it.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I don't have any further questions beyond what my fellow council members have already asked, but Hannah, Logan, I wanted to say thank you for all of this work. I really appreciate you piloting novel programs, learning, pivoting, and re-implementing next steps. And to Erin as well, thank you for choosing us to spend your internship. The work with you is not go unnoticed and was greatly appreciated by everyone. So thank you.
I had some questions stemming from not your presentation, but the memo and packet. So one of them, I was wondering if you could give us kind of a high level update on the internal decarbonization plan. Particular, I would be interested in sort of understanding our progress so far, especially in comparison to what was laid out in the plan. And whether there have been any changes
So I will say that largely the implementation of internal decarb is falling under public works, and for a full update, I believe y'all would request that from Kurt and his team. What I can say is right now we're in the preliminary phases. We have our new project manager on board, Taylor. She's amazing and just running with the project so far. So we are currently looking at drafting for the EV charging scope. We are currently looking at potentially reevaluating some of those locations. However, anything concrete we will share as appropriate.
Maybe I could ask one little follow-up question. So you mentioned the EV charging. So as I understand, the state has negotiated some kind of bulk purchasing contract or something like that. Municipalities can access. Is that what we're using, or does it not work for us?
It does work for us. So we are currently working with the available vendors under that program to evaluate the scope and see what the bids come out at.
Okay, great. Another question. So we have been giving money to Energy Smart for residential electrification efficiency. Do you anticipate just continuing that program as it's been running?
As it's been running, if anything, might be a future ask for more funding. It's a very popular program, as you saw in the memo. I mean, that money's going very fast. So it's one of our most popular and impactful programs. We do plan on evaluating all of our programs as appropriate and as we can with our missions software. So really trying to track the impact with the ROI on those and making the case for it.
And then to get to the emissions, so can you track emissions by sector and by source?
Correct, yes.
That would be interesting to see.
We'll have a full deliverable for you guys when both of those inventories are done.
Great. And then another little question, well, I guess two questions actually related to things that will show up in slides later in the meeting. One is this idea of a climate action plan. Can you just say a few words about what that is and how it's different?
Yeah, so right now we have a sustainability action plan. It is great for all it is. It has multiple strategies focusing on different sectors, but it is 5 years outdated, and at this time, the best practice has changed. So best practice moving forward is a climate action plan, and really a climate action plan is to really kind of center everything around data and around your greenhouse gas inventories. So in a greenhouse gas inventory for the community-wide kind of lens, you're looking at waste, stationary energy, transportation. You're looking at some other sources that are a little more like nuanced as well, whereas like our current plan says ecological health and urban agriculture. And those areas will be factored in under nature-based solutions. But a climate action plan is more centered on data, which our last one was not. And then we are looking to right-size that plan and also be adaptable to the federal landscape. So you'll see we're trying to avoid potentially using the word climate and maybe using sustainability work plan. We're also trying to right-size the plan as well. So a current climate action plan could say, for example, have 90 strategies, 100+ actions, and that's really hard for a team of 2. So how can we right-size this to also align with our budgeting? So we're looking to take the sustainability work plan and align it with your budget cycle and ask for new programs or funding to support the highest emission reductions that we can.
So then the other question, the Sustainability Advisory Board has made a recommendation around commercial water usage. And I kind of recall that we ran sort of a pilot program, maybe through Resource, that allowed commercial entities to do some turf removal or something like that. Is that still running?
That was not available in 2025. We are looking, as part of Aaron's internship, Logan is helping support and guide the program development of water conservation adaptation programming. So what would be the best bang for your buck, I guess, in terms of water conservation programs? Does that look like a rain barrel program? Does that look like commercial turf replacement? And then in terms of LSAB's recommendation, they're encouraging that City Council direct staff to look at a tiered water rate structure. We did speak with, I don't remember Colby's title, my goodness, but we did speak with him about maybe what we could do to help encourage water conservation.
So then, 2 more. So you mentioned the nature-based solutions toolkit that's coming through the county. I'm curious, have we attempted to incorporate any of that into city operations?
Currently, I, to my knowledge, no, and I think that's just because I think the county is also trying to figure out what programs they're able to move forward with some of the budgetary cuts on a national level. And so I think there's a variety of programs they're looking to explore. We do attend those quarterly meetings with the nature-based solutions division, so they're just continuing to look at what options might be there we could support.
And then we do engage with PROS on those areas as well. And, you know, as we get further into the development of our sustainability work plan, maybe that's something we discuss.
And do we offer eco passes to our?
We do not. We did historically before my predecessor was even here. Staff did not use them. So it's not something we've explored.
Thanks so much.
Any other questions? Okay, actually have a few. There's been a lot of action at the federal level. Which is not particularly kind to sort of work the council has supported and that you're doing sustainability. I'm wondering what seeing impact. Are you seeing impact right now? And are you anticipating impact? If so, what is that like?
I think we're seeing impact in terms of the tax credits. So the EV tax credit is something that we would be able to access for our city fleet electrification. For eligible vehicles, that would have been a $7,500 rebate that we would have received. Also, when we're looking at solar for internal decarb, that's also an available tax credit that's going away. So that doesn't, it's not great, but maybe we can work with it and see what happens. I think in terms of how we're feeling the effects right now, it just feels like we need to go for every possible funding opportunity outside of this. So we're really looking at the DRCOG funding, which is formula funding for $600,000 to support energy code or building policy within community development. And then we're also working with community development to potentially put in an application for a different grant as well to help support and supplant the development code is to explore sustainable options. But there are other funding sources that have been cut or are gone. We've been lucky because we didn't have any federal funding that was taken away. So that's really, amazing on our part. We got very lucky with that. I will also say, just think the attitude around sustainability is like, it's hard and it's tough. But if we continue to be adaptable and flexible in the time, we can figure it out. It's not the first time. We can get through it again. And I also think our residents could probably be hungry for action. So this could be a time to capitalize.
Related question, again, crystal ball question. The state is now, I think the latest number was $700 million. Trying to figure out where that money is going to come from. Right know where that is. Let's not relying so much on federal money, we are relying on some state. What do you foresee? The impact. Budget cutting.
From what I've been told, all of our state grants that are supporting internal decarb are safe. Those are earmarked. They are reserved for us. So those should not disappear by any means. When we're going after future funding opportunities for, let's say, internal decarb again, we're looking at different grant opportunities for the EV charging stations. I just think it's going to be more competitive. So we just have to have a very competitive application. But we're also kind of tapped in terms of grant capacity right now. So we have a lot of support from Public Works for internal decarb. And then for other projects moving forward, we're supporting our other departments. So also just trying to take those on and we'll just see what happens.
I appreciate that because I know that that's got to be a cloud, that those two clouds hanging over a little bit. I saw a figure of about sort of $500,000 in revenue from bag tax since 2022. Is that roughly correct? And I think you just said sort of $100,000 a year. We expecting that. When we pass that, of course, I hope that we hope that that would go down. This stopped. Bags. I don't know how that number has fluctuated during the past few years. Has it, and that'd be a better question for the writer, has it remained pretty stable? Has it dropped any?
Mayor, to answer your question, we are seeing decline there. The first 2 years was about 200,000 a year in 22 and 23, and 24 last year about 115, so almost in half. I have Q1 data because we don't have Q2 quite yet. That's the end of this month, but about 25,000 for Q1 of this year. So trending at about 100,000, I think, is potentially the bottom, but you know, this comes in every quarter. We'll keep our eye on it.
Sure. The two new programs.
Is that impacted by the state taking 10 cents from the county?
I don't believe so, no.
No, so that's our local bag tax that we have for 25 cents and then 15 is remitted to the city.
But only 15 is what we keep.
Is what we keep and then businesses keep 10 cents of the 25-cent charge from our bag tax.
Talking about the bag tax, just, well, actually talking about the two programs. Those two programs, using some bag tax. Okay. But, and they're starting.
The hard to recycle voucher, if approved, we would be able to launch that hopefully within the next like 2 months. So it would start in 2025. And then commercial sustainability rebate will launch in Q1 of 2026.
Let's just talk about the Q1 and 2026, just generally. How much of bag tax rate ultimately is going to the back cost of these two programs? They're being funded in a variety of different, but part of it's bag tax.
Correct.
Right? How much between the two is bag tax? Because it wasn't clear to me from the discussion exactly what that is.
They're both bag tax. Bag tax lives within the general fund, so it doesn't live separately, so it just funnels into the general fund and then based on the language within the ordinance, it supports the sustainability program. So anytime we make an ask for a bag tax, it is ultimately coming from the general fund under the bag tax comes in.
Again, I'm just, I guess, asking about the particular amounts. Are there, so the amount from the bag tax can fully fund those two programs?
Correct.
I wanted to follow up on one question about able to measure by sector and source. So, yeah, when we're talking about source, how granular is that information? I guess I'm not talking about per business, are we?
No, so what we do, so let's say if we're looking at natural gas use, we would receive that information from Excel and they would say, in your community, you are using X amount of therms based on your residential coded businesses and then commercial, and we don't have anyone coded to industrial. So we'd be looking at the commercial therms and that's where we can allocate, let's say the businesses are using X amount of natural gas, then this equals X amount of greenhouse gas emissions.
That's gonna be great data to have, so I really appreciate that. The final question that I had was, you were talking about a five-year contract with
EcoCycle.
Okay, so if that, maybe it's just confirming that that's what we're talking about, and that would be a contract that would begin immediately.
If we can, so I'd probably put it to start, let's say like September 1st, just to ensure we have time for approvals that'll go on the consent agenda, pending the amount. If we are building in the 5 years, I'd like to build in an area where, let's say, we have a do not exceed amount, so we could potentially add more if the program is really popular, so kind of future proofing potentially as well.
Pay per year or
Potentially, yeah. So we would pay the 37,000 for this year, but building into the contract, a do not exceed amount of like, let's say 100,000. So if it's really popular and pending fiscal availability, if you guys want to fund future years, we could then send more checks to EcoCycle under that same contract.
Thank you very much, appreciate it. It's a good presentation, a lot of work. I like it. Anything more? All right, why don't we take public comments?
Rachel Setsky.
Somewhere to go. Step front. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Rachel Setsky. I am here both my professional role as senior policy advisor for EcoCycle. Don't work at the Charm, but definitely connects with my colleagues there. Answer all your questions. But I'm also a 20-year Louisville resident. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak in support of LSAB's recommendations to City Council to explore in your 2026 work plan. In particular, I ask that you prioritize considering a universal recycling ordinance that would require businesses to recycle and compost. Louisville's commitment to being green is one of the things that I love most about our city. As a resident who lives off McCaslin, our family often bikes or walks to the local businesses that we support. And my husband and I definitely appreciate the convenience of the recycling and composting through the municipal contract. When I talk to other communities about recycling and composting in Colorado, I often mention Louisville's leadership through our single family residential recycling and composting service, as well as the bag tax and the sustainability the support that we give to our businesses. In 2020, the county contracted EcoCycle to compile Boulder County Zero Waste Scorecard. Based on the materials that were being landfilled in the county, our team calculated the most impactful actions that municipalities could take to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and divert materials from landfills. Two of the three most impactful actions were requiring businesses to recycle and requiring businesses to compost. And both of these actions can be achieved through a universal recycling ordinance. For example, when the city of Boulder adopted their ordinance called their Universal Zero Waste Ordinance in 2015, their waste diversion rate jumped from 39% to 57% in just 3 years. Recently, Longmont, Lafayette, Denver, and some mountain towns have adopted similar universal recycling ordinances. And as EcoCycle has worked with those communities to help implement the ordinances, we've seen that the biggest barrier to businesses and multifamily residents that want to recycle and compost is that often their waste services are contracted by their property owner or their landlords. And so they don't necessarily have access to composting and recycling. And a universal recycling ordinance would require those property managers to provide that service. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about recycling or composting or the state's plastic bag or law. And I just want to thank LSAB and your sustainability staff, and the council for all the work that you do to our city green.
Thank you. I should have said before, because typically
Hannah knows where to reach me, so if you have questions.
Next up is Liliana Setsky.
Good evening, council members. My name is Liliana Setsky. I'm a lifelong Louisville resident and I graduated from Monarch last year. Since then, I've been working at events, including the Louisville Street Fair doing zero waste and at a restaurant in Louisville. Through my jobs, I've noticed a few waste-related things that could be improved on. First, at my restaurant job, only cardboard is recycled and there is no compost. And recycling only cardboard means a lot of recyclable and compostable material is going to the landfill. We're throwing away a lot of other recyclable packaging such as glass and aluminum, as well as large quantities of food waste that should be composted. Because of this, I think an ordinance requiring businesses to recycle and for food businesses to compost materials from the back of house or kitchen areas could drastically reduce waste landfill pollution. This type of ordinance is often called a universal recycling or zero waste ordinance. And Boulder adopted one almost a decade ago, and several other cities have adopted them since. And in addition, I strongly appreciate that the street fair uses recyclable and compostable cups. And Scraps does an excellent job of making sure everything is sorted correctly and that the compost is diverted. But there's still a lot of single-use waste at the street fair. At one event last summer, in addition to the recycled single-use bulk cups, there were 147 pounds of compost, including a significant amount of compostable dishes. This is not only a lot of waste, but it also confuses residents because the composting guidelines, and this year there's cycling guidelines because the recycling is going to Denver apparently, are different than at home. At the street fair. So in addition to recycling and composting, a universal recycling ordinance should have requirements for use at city permitted events and potentially also restaurants. I think it would be beneficial to partner with a reuse company such as Our World or Deliver Zero in addition to Scraps at city events so that we would reduce waste in addition to diverting, continuing to divert and correctly sort the recycling and compost. Thank you for considering a universal recycling ordinance, and please support this measure requiring waste diversion in businesses and consider including sections on reuse.
Thank you.
Tiffany Boyd.
I can make sure we have. Okay. Hi, Tiffany Boyd, Ward 3, and I just want to start by reiterating what Rachel and Lily just talked about a universal waste reduction project. That would be amazing and very needed in Louisville and a great addition to our electric fleet of waste trucks and just be a wonderful addition to our community. So thanks for that. I just want to start off by saying thanks to Aaron, and Logan, and Hannah for the amazing job you all are doing, and to the city council members who really dig deep into the issues and the documents that you've been sent, especially you, Councilmember Cooperman. Thank you for digging deep into those documents. I want to talk a little bit about the memo that LSAP sent to all of you. There are lots of parts in there. I wanted to focus specifically on exploring a local climate resilience fund. And I think I'm going to change it to implore that possibly we could do this fund. Lots of discussion today about the reduction in the federal support that we have that's going on around not just sustainability, for education, for EDI, for so many things that this community holds true. And like Hannah was saying, we are hungry to be able to implement things. We have to be adaptable, we have to be flexible. But what's happening right now is we really need to look locally for the support for the things that we care about. So, for example, climate change is one of those things that it's really hard for all of us to see. We feel the heat, we watch the flooding in Central Texas, we see we see the results of what's happening with people in our communities not having affordable housing. So while I know everyone in council and we all like to say that we make decisions through the lens of sustainability, through the lens of EDI, I really feel like we need to operationalize those decisions and make them real and true and boots on the ground with the way we use our dollars. I've been a lifelong educator, and Boulder Valley School District usually passes ballot initiatives for education. I think we're getting close to trying to do something with the next ballot tax with BVSD in terms of sustainability, thinking about a possible resilient futures tax that would be for everyone within BVSD. So that's something to think about, but also locally here in Louisville. And if you read the memo, so $6.5 million from the climate tax in Boulder, $3.5 million from the climate tax in Fort Collins. We don't need to call it a climate tax, we can call it something else, but it's something we need to bring to our voters and honor the fact that these are funds that we're not gonna get from anywhere else unless we ask our local. Thank you.
Thanks.
I don't think we can.
Let's bring it back to council.
Follow-up question. So clearly, the sustainability advisory board is not about the source. Just wondering if staff has had discussions around it as well.
We haven't had discussions internally for any big policy decisions. We have to be directed to explore by city council.
Sure.
Thank you very much for great information and really appreciate your being able to ask those or answer those questions on your feet, because that's certainly a sign that you know your stuff well, and there's a lot of really detailed questions, so really appreciate that. Yes, that's. Thank you. Questions? Got to programs. Yeah, motion. Maybe. It's the green light first.
What do I push? Judy, there we go. Oh. Well, so moved. It's Tony, so moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Right.
Oh, yeah, you can. For a while, I saw they had like, what time were they a little creamy, like creamy, felt like it's. That's what it is. It's a big five.
Hey, Brad.
You guys might want to mute while you're on break.
As. a sentence. This is an iterative. The budget, so.
Apologies for interrupting. I can't hear anything right now. I think Chris is speaking. But try again. I'm not.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
No way. All right, well, it's red, it's red. So,
You're
red-
talking into Josh's.
let's do this.
Well, I can hear you perfectly now.
You hear me
Sounds good.
now?
Sounds awesome.
Yes, no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now can you hear me? You're on mute.
See,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yep. I'm not hearing anything if you're testing.
Caleb, you can hear us now.
I can hear the person who just asked. Yes.
Okay.
Well, Josh, we'll share, we'll sing together, for one. So we're gonna talk about, one of the things we're gonna talk about tonight is core service. Let me, go to staff to make the staff presentation. And then we will have public comment on that and then, council discussion. So,
Good evening, Mayor. I'm Diana White, the city manager. So tonight we're going to cover, you do have all of the department heads here tonight. They're gonna do a presentation related to their departments, challenges, opportunities, go over their 2026 budget supplemental requests. I want to note that you have a handout with you that are one-sheeters on each of the departments. It talks about who we are, what we do. Even city council has a sheet. And so this was intended to provide some background as to the services provided by each department. Once the department heads are completed with their presentations, we will have some spreadsheets that outline the various requests from the advisory boards. So LSAB, OSAB, PPLAB, and RAB. It's a lot of acronyms. And then we will go into the discussion related to core services. So if council's ready, we'll get started.
we're ready.
Okay. So the purpose is to continue the discussion around the 2026 council work plan. As you note, the council work plan doesn't reflect all projects within the city. It's projects that council wants staff to particularly focus on. And it should be achievable. As you know, we do have projects from the 2025 work plan that will transfer over into 2026. We last met on May 27th, where we reviewed background and strategic framework, progress on the 2025 council work plan. Council affirmed continuing the 2025 4 priorities and 2 lenses. However, I will say this is subject to change. With the evaluation of the draft comprehensive plan, there's a vision, values, and goals in there. And so we may change the priorities to align with the comprehensive plan. We took notes on council priorities and focus areas for 2026. Those notes have been shared with council. And as part of this conversation, core services emerged as a topic for further discussion. Not only the conversation related to the work plan, but also the conversation at the finance committee meeting on the 2026 supplemental budget. And so it became clear that we need to, as we discuss, making our general fund and parks fund structurally balanced, that we need to have discussion about core services because adjustments will need to be made to make those balanced in the future. So again, department presentations, board and commission requests, core services discussion, and then next steps. So with that, we are going to slide into department presentations. They are alphabetical by department. And so Jenny gets the great task of kicking it off for us. And Jenny, it's all yours.
Thank you. Jenny White, interim city clerk. So the challenges and opportunities that we're seeing in the city clerk's office are increased workloads on staff. We do have some technology opportunities, but we also have challenges. We are in the process of getting some systems that will provide efficiency and better accessibility for residents as well as staff, mainly agenda management. We are also upgrading our Laserfish software, so that will allow more people into the system at a time. So you won't be getting that little thing of, hey, you can't get in. But we also have current technology that is also not being fully utilized. Laserfish is one of them. We only use about 10% of that product. And the reason for that is because we don't have time as staff to implement projects that we would like to for that program. The other thing that weighs heavy on my mind is trying to mitigate institutional knowledge. When Meredith left, 27 years of knowledge went with her. I have a court clerk who has been with the city almost 40 years. And so when she is ready to retire, all of that knowledge will go with her. I'm trying to mitigate that by, we did hire a clerk technician who spends half of her time at court. So she is learning what Linda does on a day-to-day basis. But those are my biggest challenges and opportunities right now. My expansion request is for $80,000. This is for a potential resident initiative special election. I'm trying to avoid that. I think we have a good timeline to avoid that, but I am keeping it in here just in case something happens and we do have to have a special election.
Right, any questions for Jenny?
Any questions? Two questions. One is the person that you called her, the court technician?
Nicole, her.
Is that person doing anything other than absorbing what the court clerk is?
She splits her time between my office and court. So she's supporting me with various things right now, like dog licensing, block parties, live music permits, those little day-to-day things. So she does split her time between my office and court.
And the second thing is, do you remember what the cost of the last special election at, or the last referendum election?
It was close to $80,000. Yeah, at the end of this.
So is 80,000, do you think enough, or is it likely?
It's likely to be more than that, but we have funds budgeted already for elections every year. So I think the additional 80,000 plus what we have budgeted would cover the cost if a special election were needed.
We have the elections for regular elections.
Yes.
Which are consolidated with the county's efforts.
Yes,
And even then, we will have enough to make up any difference between 80,000.
yes.
Okay, that's all. Any other questions from the council? Yes, Councilmember Phil.
Just go back one slide. I'm just curious, could you tell us a little bit more about the first bullet point? Like, are there particular things that are workloads are higher, or just across the board, or?
We have seen an uptick in community engagement, and what I mean by that is our public records requests have almost doubled in the last 2 years. So that takes a lot of time. We are also doing more special, my office does special event permitting. We are doing more special events than we have ever done in the past. And like I said, we have a very engaged community. So a lot of my time actually is spent on the phone with residents, answering questions or answering emails. Right now, particularly, I'm getting a lot of questions about the upcoming election and the initiatives that I have on my desk. So we have great resident contact in my office.
Thanks very much.
Sure.
I think that's why we wanted to share the one pagers as well. To just give you a sense of everything that's covered by each department, even though there's a lot of things that aren't forward facing, there's what's happening in the back office. And so there's a lot of time that's committed to helping the public, but then also supporting other departments, supporting council initiatives, and then supporting projects. And so just to give everybody a sense of what each department does.
Yeah, just wondering, Jenny, do you know when residents begin the process of doing a petition to do a special election vote, are they made aware of the potential cost to the city? As a first part of the question, the second part, if they are, do they have to communicate that at all when they're gathering? Like, would you like, there to be an election that will cost the city $80,000 to initiate, to ask this question, to do this thing? Is that communicated at all during the process? I don't know.
It's my understanding that actually cannot be communicated because that would seem like I was prohibiting from carrying out their due process. If I said to them, this is gonna cost $80,000, that could be perceived that I'm trying to discourage them from doing what they have a right to do. So I will say the petitioners for these two initiatives, the reason they went so quickly was because they did know the cost and they didn't want to put that cost on the city. But again, some factors could arise where it doesn't make the November ballot, so I'm kind of planning for that contingency.
Okay, so there's still a chance that, my understanding they'd missed that deadline. There's still a chance that this could be in the November ballot and not cost us $80,000?
Absolutely, yes, there is a chance.
Interesting. Okay. Thanks for that information. But yeah, I understand that. I think that makes sense. I just also, and so it sounds like in the most recent case, they certainly are aware of it. They know about it. We're not trying to threaten them, but like, I just don't want people, thinking that these things are free, and that there is a cost to bear, and it is still worth doing it if it's important. But just the knowledge I think is good. But I think you make a good point that, you know, I mean, I think you would be the best person to deliver that as someone who's not a city council person who is maybe, but just informing them of that. But if that feels, yeah, I don't know if that's not standard operating for a city clerk.
So next, it's the city manager's office. So being here, when I first walked in the door, day one, this was on the whiteboard in my office in terms of a theme across the city, staffing, stability, and systems. And I can confirm that these are the three priorities for the city manager's office. So with the turnover rate that's occurred within Louisville over the last few years, there've been expenses associated with, recruitments, bringing people on, training, and unfortunately, our technology is not set up for plug and play. So you can't bring new people in and just put them into the same positions and expect the same output or expect the same level of service. And so we are seeing, as Jenny noted, technology is not being used as effective as it could be. And there's other opportunities to bring technology in to simplify, streamline, make processes more efficient. And so, those are areas that we are focusing on. From a stability standpoint, having consistency in leadership, policy direction, expectations related to service levels, which we are all discussing, alignment with the community survey. There's a lot of valuable information from there, but then also alignment with, council's goals, what's proposed in the comprehensive plan, priorities. And then as noted in systems, I think all of us can attest to, as we go to do something, we always see like, oh, there could be improvement here as we bring people in, acknowledging that Louisville's a growing city. Louisville has gone from, a smaller population, smaller organization. It's grown, but it's a very sophisticated community. And so expectations in terms of service levels are very high. And so when staff tries to maintain those service levels, they're just doing it at the impact of their workload, and they're adopting the do more with less, which is not sustainable. And so we're trying to evaluate what are ways that we can be more efficient and also directing resources where they align with priorities. And, you know, the problem, good thing, there's a lot of high priority items in Louisville, right? And so, we do have some expansion requests that you will be considering as part of the 2026 supplemental budget. We've talked about Boulder County, ODM buy-in. And so a couple of months ago, council authorized me to reach out to Boulder ODM to look at the possibility of buying in for them to provide emergency preparedness disaster management services. About 2 weeks ago, they provided a proposal. That proposal is $213,700 on a first, for the first year, and then it would be increased by an inflator going forward. That amount buys Louisville a seat on the board. Then also they would be adding a staff member to support Louisville emergency preparedness efforts. This proposal will be coming to council for consideration, most likely before the 2026 budget is adopted, so it become a budget amendment. At the time that we were preparing these expansion requests, we had also, council had given us authority to prepare a request for proposals for the preparation of emergency operations plan, and then also evaluating a variety of different studies to look at mitigation measures that need to be implemented. In talking to Mike Chard with Boulder County ODM, they are intending to update their emergency operations plan next year. If we join, Louisville would become an annex, and then that would save us the funding in terms of us moving forward now with an emergency operations plan. The efficiency system improvement contingency. Again, this is be a contingency amount of $100,000. There's a lot of things that we could implement. I can give you a brief example. DocuSign. Rather than spending time, hand delivering or emailing documents that we then print out and then sign and then deliver to the next person, it can all be done electronically through DocuSign or Adobe Sign or pick your program. But to implement that across the organization would be a more efficient use of time and resources. That's a really simplified one. Agenda management software that's coming out of Jenny's office, but to be able to make that a more streamlined electronic process. And then that way it would save Jenny a lot of hours in terms of putting the budget out. And then from a staff perspective, a lot of hours and a lot of touch points trying to update the agenda. For Marshall 5-year anniversary, we're proposing $35,000. This would be for an event to acknowledge and recognize the anniversary, and then an art piece as well. We've talked previously, this would be done through the Cultural Advisory Board as part of the normal public art process. Hannah briefly talked about the sustainability planner. This is related to the potential Dr. Cog grant of $600,000. This position would support the implementation of the 2024 International Energy Conservation Code. And the primary focus would be enforcement, plan review, community engagement, and communication. Strategic planning, core services, and service alignment. This would be an amount of $150,000. This would create an overarching vision and framework to strategically align resources and service levels. This one's a to be determined because it truly is to be determined. We need to see where these conversations go related to core services and service levels. Are there any things that we need to evaluate? Are there any systems that we need to put more effort into? And so this is why this is to be determined. It's more of a placeholder to see as we navigate this process of evaluating core services, if any additional work is required. Potential polling and engagement. Again, these sheets were submitted pretty early on. At that point in time, not sure if there's a desire to do any potential polling. What could that polling be? The historic preservation tax is going to expire in 2028. And so is there a desire to move forward with that in 2026? Or so that could be polling. It could also be related to an engagement survey with the community. Council sponsored events fund of $10,000. This would coincide with a council sponsorship policy in which people could submit sponsorship requests. Twice a year, staff would bring those requests before council And this would give council the opportunity to decide, do you want to support the Monarch High School parade? Do you want to support, so it'd be different, like nonprofit community type events that are requesting, nominal funding from the city. And then the climate action plan, reduction. And so, Councilman Cooperman, you asked Hannah about this item. It's currently budgeted $200,000. They're proposing to reduce that amount to $100,000. And what that would do, they would move from a 5-year climate action plan to a 2-year sustainability work plan, which, as Hannah noted, would be a more focused and adaptable path forward. They would then be able to align it with the budget cycle and be able to identify and implement measures that they feel like they could achieve within that 2-year time frame. Any questions for me?
Yeah, on the last item, is that 100,000 meant to be a consultant fee?
I know that Hannah has looked at, there's another agency that she's viewing as a example of what could be done. So I think part of that would be trying to align with that agency. It's an agency out of Washington. And so I don't know if they would do it with the consultant based upon their current workload and just use that as the example for the preparation of the plan, or if they would try to incorporate that into their current workload. As you heard Hannah and Logan note, they have a lot on them.
And one other little question, would you serve on the ODM board if you join?
To be determined. And so if we joined, we need to have an IGA. And as part of that, that would outline the governance structure. And so that would need to be determined as to who serves. Currently, I don't believe there are electeds on their board, but that may change.
Thanks.
That's pretty much it. Just got a couple of questions. I wondered what is the status right now of the sponsorship policy? I know there's this.
So my understanding is the Economic Vitality Commission would like to see it at the next meeting. And so we have a rough draft that we need to address a couple of things. With it, we're going to need some policy direction from the EBC and council. And so we would bring forward the rough draft where you can see some decision points related to the policy. We would take your input and then bring it to the full council for adoption.
Second question is, you talked about the fact that we don't use technology as well as we can. Do you think that, and you have money in there for that, or additional amounts in there for that? You think that that's primarily a issue of not using what we have well enough, need training, or is the idea more that we are missing a bunch of technology, don't have?
Both. And I would say because of the turnover and staffing, you have a lot of people that have been filling 2 roles. And so from a workload perspective, there's not a lot of capacity right now, as Jenny noted, to train on software. And then also just not fully understanding the capability of the software. And then also needing to attain additional software to make us more streamlined. And so, for some functions, you could more easily plug and play with people and not rely so much on the institutional knowledge. I'll tell you, I think one of the most frustrating things of coming into a new employee is trying to figure out things that we need to do. And then also, you know, we saw it with this situation with the billing software for the utilities. There's also just some things that we need to do to make the software more aligned with current practices.
And the last question I had with the Marshall 5-year anniversary. Superior's going to be part of, they're going to certainly have a 5-year anniversary. I don't know currently whether there is, you, from your perspective, plans to coordinate with them in terms, I mean, is this $35,000 kind of going into a joint?
The $35,000 would be specific to Louisville. Superior and Superior Council have been working on this for a while. I don't believe they've reached out to Louisville to see if there's a desire to do some type of joint.
That's right.
And so, you know, we would really be focusing on Louisville and what we can do to acknowledge the 5-year anniversary here.
By the same token, it is the idea that there's going to be some coordination between the city and Marshall together.
So Raina, who's part of Marshall Together, is on the Cultural Advisory Board. And so in my mind, she would be the liaison between what the city's proposing and that community.
Any other questions? Thank you for that.
Right, next we have Rob.
All right, good to see you all again, 24 hours later here. Right prior to hearing me, but so challenges and opportunities here. I've noted a few challenges to start with that are staff related. There's certainly been growing desire to tackle housing and affordable housing. You know, a lot of cities are expanding that workforce to help with those policy initiatives. So kind of meeting all of the expectations without additional staff resources, challenge that we noted. And then another staff one is, you know, we have the home hardening code, which is probably a smaller effort than what's coming up, which is the Wildland Urban Interface Code, which has a state mandate. We'll be adopting our own version here soon. You know, we're anticipating that's going to result in a lot more, you know, need for inspections, especially plan review and inspection processes that, you know, will add to staff workloads. So staffing resources for that are big things on our radar. The next one's, I'd say, more of an opportunity than a challenge. We've been talking about this for quite a while now, is, you know, once the comprehensive plan is adopted, we'll start with our code updates, our land development code updates. That's something that is budgeted for next year. We have a grant to supplement that budget right now. So that's definitely an opportunity to kind of get into that implementation aspect to streamline our development processes and codes. The last one is kind of competing priorities. I think for the last few years, we've had a lot of community and council competing priorities that have been challenging for staff, trying to kind of work with you all, make sure that we're you know, getting it right. Economic development and energy code is one, as you know. You know, we're hearing from different groups with very strong opinions about the impact of energy code, impact on economic development. So I think that's a challenge for us that we've seen the last couple of years that we think will continue to move forward, is trying to find that right balance for this community. I think home hardening and affordability, inclusivity is another one with the Louis code. All these codes are expensive to implement, but they're important for safety and well-being. So, you know, are there opportunities to find ways, you know, to balance that or provide resources for those who can afford it? So those are challenges that I think we've seen, and doesn't mean we're not up for the challenges, but I just wanted to recognize that because there's a lot of strong opinions that we hear that we're always trying to balance. So expansion requests, we've got a couple. Development impact fee update. We last updated ours about 8 years ago. With the comprehensive plan and land development code coming out in anticipation of potentially some additional development, even without the comprehensive plan, just with red tail coming in. It's really time to update our development impact fees, so there's a consultant fee, $80,000 proposed to update that, so that's update our categories, amounts, and so forth. The other thing is a shared vehicle for community development staff. The position that city manager Langley mentioned coming out of sustainability planner, it's actually highly building code related. Doing plan reviews, but also inspections. We anticipate maybe having to do site inspections. With the Ruby code, our planning staff are anticipating are gonna have to do more site inspections. Our building official doesn't have a vehicle assigned right now. It's very cost effective for mileage reimbursement, but once we stack all of those new needs, it makes financial sense to probably have another shared vehicle.
Any questions for Rob?
So help me understand your last comments regarding the vehicle. Is the vehicle dependent on the sustainability planner position, or is it still needed if that grant position is filled?
Right, I think it is, I think if that position, I think it's gonna depend on the scope of our WUI and home hardening code. I think it's, and how much development we get within the WUI area. And so I would say we would need it regardless, just because.
That's a question. Yes, Councilman.
I was wondering, would we consider essentially increasing our permit fees or something like that to offset the cost of administering code?
So that's something that I think we'll have to discuss if you are in the area, do we want to charge an additional fee that would help cover some of those costs? That is actually in the state code. There's authorization for local jurisdictions to charge additional fees.
Then also curious, like in your first bullet point about affordable housing. So nominally we partner with the Boulder County Housing. Do they really provide much of the sort of resources that would be useful or not so much?
So I think their primary objective right now with how they're structured is to do affordable housing developments rather than guide policy within the jurisdiction, or even manage, say, deed restricted affordable housing for a jurisdiction. That's why we have current IGA with the city of Boulder to do that instead of Boulder County Housing.
I had a couple of questions. So, one is back to the affordable housing. You've indicated for meet affordable housing goals without additional staff resource. Is that realistic?
To meet all of our affordable housing goals,
Without, I'm focused maybe.
without additional staff resources. So I think that, the more resources we have, the more likely we could do it in a timely manner. I mean, we are picking away at it. We're trying to do things this year. I think, and I'm also not thinking that the affordable housing strategic plan that we have right now is going to do everything that we're going to want to do. We're already adding additional things. The fund wasn't anticipated, right? Trying to manage that fund, just as one example. I think our housing strategic plan that we have right now, I think we can implement over time, but having affordable housing dedicated staff member could help expand what we're doing and do it more efficiently.
Looking at the development impact fee, that's in the life of the city, that's a regular process, is it not?
Yeah, so actually what it says in our code, it has to be recertified
keep up with and be competitive. Space constraints, our teams are making the best with what they have, but currently all of the departments, our museum lacks appropriate controlled spaces for their collections. Being that they get to be the curators and protectors of Louisville's history and identity, investing in those spaces is going to be essential as we look into the future for investment in that department. Our technology and equipment, much like those of my colleagues, is coming to end of life. Our automated material handler in the library, Chuck, who leads us and feeds your books into the friendly book dragon, is due for replacement. Like every sector across the board, we are seeing inflation. That is costs there, including public access to computers, software that we can make available to bridge digital divides, provide digital literacy programs are essential that we keep investing in those. But even our furniture and equipment, again, we are a consumer business, right? Unlike our homes where we might invest in a piece of furniture for a decade, our chairs are sat on thousands of a year. They're climbed on by little hands and little feet, exploring and learning with their families. We're also facing a challenge and opportunity, I truly believe, of balancing the traditional expectations of a town with great traditions and great pride and identity with evolving community needs and cultural representation. So as I got to speak with many of you and many community members, I hear a great desire to be more inclusive and be more equitable and be more diverse. Identifying what that means, identifying how we need to shift our bandwidth to match our resource level and make that happen. It's one of the challenges and opportunities listening as we sort of carve out what the future plan for all three distinct entities under cultural services. With that, we do bring some budget requests this year. This coming year. Talking about our aging infrastructure, our public copier on the second floor has reached the fight. We had a service call for it earlier this week, and the tech very kindly said, as long as your workaround works, keep doing it. It's too old to do anything else. So we have reached critical peak for that piece of equipment. We still see many people come in, especially people who are looking for service help or job help, relying on these pieces of equipment. Ideally, we would like to look at what faxing looks like in the future down the road conversation. We touched briefly on the travel, training, and meetings budget for the library. We're asking for an investment of $10,000 that allows us the opportunity to send our team members, both our professional staff and our circulation team members, associate team members, to trainings. We do a lot of emotional resiliency in public sectors, public spaces. We're dealing with people on their best days. They're doing that first library card. They're going into kindergarten. They're celebrating graduations. We get them on their worst days. We don't know where else to go. We don't have anywhere else to reach out to. They don't know how to find the information we need. So being able to provide the teams with proper training to develop those skill sets, but also build an emotional and professional resiliency to our team. And lastly, as you heard from Gigi and Iris at the previous meeting, the 250, 150 is coming up. I'm not going to tackle that word. They are brave. I am not. And we are putting we are putting in a request for $10,000 to help us enhance what is already a vibrant and dynamic slate of regular programming for extra syllabus. Happy to answer any questions.
Wondering if you could dive a little bit into your first bullet point about staffing, particular. Is it sort of across the board, or are there particular places where you feel like staffing pressure points?
Yeah, so I think that each department has the opportunity for enhancements in staffing. The library, I think, has the most body power, which is very helpful. But when we talk about what makes up the library, things that we see as national trends, one of the things that we have from is the profession. So librarianship is a master's degree, it is a professional degree, right? And that requires a special set of skills, not only in curating information, but in connecting people. we talk about things like climate literacy, financial literacy, digital literacy. Those are specialized skill sets that we need to be able to lean into. And so right now, our librarian level, I think, is a little light for a community, not just of this size, but of this standard. Right? We're looking for, we're serving a very highly educated population, we're serving people with really deep passion areas. We want to make sure that we are not the experts in the room, but that quickly learn we will never be the experts in the room, but we can get them connected to the right information. The museum itself also, I think, is lacking in some professional service. Right now, our associates happen to have master's level degrees and serving in part-time positions where that level and skill set is not being recognized in their placement here. And we're quite a ways behind on cataloging our backstop items. As we continue to grow, we continue to look at how we want to gather the continued history, right? We're continuing to grow the history of Louisville, but also what comes next, where we want to set up to be inherited 50 years from now. We're going to need a little bit more flex there. Arts and events, again, 1.5 people. That's wild. If you had the ability to join us at 4th of July, that was amazing event. You know, and we can't make that happen without reaching into these other departments for some staff who are willing to give up their time. But ideally, if we want to continue community events at that level, I think at least upping that part-time person up to full-time would really provide more stability and support to get all of those.
And I was wondering, on the third bullet point, are there opportunities to sort of join larger partnerships that would help with acquiring materials?
That is a fantastic question. So we are already part of a very large consortium project. And so we are in a subgroup of that includes Boulder and Lafayette, Longmont, Loveland. Our friends in Loveland are having a harder time with that. Broomfield. I'm sure there's one I'm forgetting. Who's with me if any of you are listening. So we do a lot of resource sharing already. Resource sharing is about libraries, but we just can't keep up. Right now, at the midpoint, our physical checkouts have crossed over 255,000. Our electronic checkouts have crossed over 44,000 items, so it's about 20% electronic digital. Ebooks, unlike consumer buying directly, costs us about $250 per book. We get about 20 certs that one person can use at a time, so we have to repurchase book publishing standards. And so as that rising demand goes to moving to non-printed material, so go our costs. Which also means so goes our budget allocation, which leaves shelves empty, which causes that area of access and opportunity because not everyone has access to digital materials. So we look for those consortium savings. We do a lot of shared pooling and buying already. We're taking a really hard look at the processes and materials we use. Books require labels, require RFID. There's all these little pieces that really add up. And at the end of the day, we might be able to squeeze a little bit out and streamline a little bit there, but there's not much we can.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Two little items. Do we expect the cost of printing to cover the cost of the copy?
That's a really good question. I don't have that data point. I'd be happy to look into it. I would assume in a span of 3 years, yes. The life of the printer is probably close to 7. So 4 years after that of return.
Then a crazy question.
Yeah.
Could we use mine shafts for storage?
No. My very limited knowledge of mine shafts and my very deep knowledge of paper tells me that that might not be a suitable environment. But we are working closely with all of our friends in various departments. As the city is looking for expansion, we are keeping our eyes out that we can build what we can there. I love the creativity. Always have to.
Not a crazy question. Not since last night. Yes, Council.
Can you just say that thing again about the books? Can you say those together?
Yeah, so essentially it'll cost us $27 to $250, and all this is gonna depend on the publisher. So the ebook market, and this is a really deep conversation. I'm super happy to give the high detail at a different or deeper level of detail at a different time. Has no regulation right now. And so it depends on which platform we're going through, depends on which publisher, depends on how it's published, and for that publisher and which house it comes out of. But we get about 27 checkouts, generally national average, before we have to repurchase. So what might cost us $120, so we're buying the new stations. $120 for us. You could go to Amazon and get it for $7.99, but we can't because we are an institution. And so we are beholden to the publishers.
So in just imagine the worst case, it's a $250 book. And we're getting 25 checkouts and we're paying $10 every time something. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
yes.
That's a helpful too.
Yeah, but it's a wild statistic and it is a national problem. There is a movement with the American Library Association, and Public Library Association subgroup to really push for better legislation around how these price models are set. Not a lot of competition, but all things like locked into licenses.
Am I right to assume those the physical copy of the book is somewhat close in price to what a regular person would pay?
Generally, a physical copy of a book will cost about $27. That can be checked out with 250 times or until life expectancy. And so that gives us a little bit more flexibility.
But we need to store it in mine shaft.
Yes, right.
That's it, that's all the questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
I just have a question about the affordability of placing things in the makerspace. Is that posing a problem financially?
Not to my understanding, and so I am looking a little deeper into our data for those sort of specialized services. I know that we are looking at providing more access to community element is always. We do have the opportunity to source our materials from different vendors who provide some cost savings. So right now, I don't think makerspace presents as much of a cost issue.
And then you mentioned the lack of space for storing items, especially museum historical items. How much? We've been talking about adding another building next to the museum with that in mind. But it hasn't happened.
No, it hasn't happened. I just finished reading through the master plan on the campus redesign. It's 4 or 5 binders I took them all with. There's obviously a desire, but again, it's resources versus what we can do. So right now the team is making the very best of it. They're doing a fantastic job taking care of what they have, how they can. But ideally, especially as people continue to bring us things post fires, to bring us these real heirlooms that tell a story of this town. Share them, share them.
Are we putting some in a separate?
We are currently storage for small offsite storage, yes.
And then are we getting any money at all from the library foundation, the museum?
Yep, so both of those entities do provide grants to these organizations. This year, actually, the Library Foundation has given us close to $27,000 in funding that's strictly for materials, including $10,000 that allows us to provide advantage copies for new materials, so it benefits because we're in that consortium for buying prices. That extra $10,000 allows us to prioritize the wants and desires of Louisville residents, so they can move up the list a little faster. The challenge there is, while that is quite generous and we're so grateful to receive it, it is variable. And should the foundation one day go away, a $27,000 loss to our collection would decimate our library space.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, welcome. This is your first go around through this project. Appreciate that you're here. It is about 8, so for break. we can meet back here at 10, then Ryder. You are. Yeah. You got it. Like that, gee, so, that was something. But, I mean, my people.
Yeah, I got the battery.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Any? Yes.
Jenny on it, I'm the battery, it's just.
Yeah, that happens so much.
I was.
Yeah.
Which nobody knows. Which little town?
Yeah.
All right, folks. Let's, I want to do a time check with council. Because, it's, it's 8:10 right now. And I got a long way to go. I think I'm not sure how long we have to. Depends on the number of questions. And also, we want to get to core services. And we need public comment. I think probably the best time to be public comment would be right after the staff presentations. And then we can do it again after the court or an actual. But why don't we go to finance?
All right, thank you. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to present tonight. The finance department, our opportunities and challenges revolve around the 3 Ps: people, programs, and processes. An ongoing challenge for us is hiring and retaining talent. For the department, since I got here, we've had a pretty high turnover rate. And that puts strains on our staff, puts strains on the organization as a whole. You've been kind of hearing this all night long. And even if, or once we do achieve full staffing, we'll want to remain vigilant around cross-training our staff in various duties and responsibilities, functions, as well as focusing on training, professional development, and growth. Really building in depth, building up that lost institutional knowledge to best support our city staff and our residents. Programs, an opportunity lies in our critical IT infrastructure. I'll dive into that deeper on our next slide as this is an expansion request. And then processes. The reality of the finance department is that much of what we do on our one pager, you can see that, is at the time we spend is predetermined. Weekly AP check runs, biweekly payroll processing, AR, revenue deposits, general ledger maintenance, city hall front desk staffing, our annual external audit, budget development oversight, management of debt investments, monthly finance committee, development administration, tax collection, licensing and administration. You add in vacancies or turnover. That's another element of burden and stress on the task that we are required to provide timely and accurately. With that said, our staff is continuously working towards identifying and implementing operational efficiencies and improving processes. I'd like to thank the finance committee and your council for your support and openness to doing things differently, more efficiently and effectively. Time is money, and we aim to be prudent with taxpayer dollars. With that, I'll highlight a few process improvement successes recently. Our revised purchasing policy, weekly check runs, assisting golf and with IT support on the POS and reservation system, working with Public Works on call services, so we can more quickly respond to facilities needs and repairs. And very popular Public Works and IT, we collaborate with them on the pay-per-use process at the RV dump sites. You no longer have to bring your 27-footer to City Hall to get a card to access the dump site. There is no shortage of processes that can be refined or improved, but our main constraint really is the limited staff time to identify, research, and address those areas. So the next slide kind of diving into an opportunity here that lies in our critical IT infrastructure, particularly our utility billing and sales tax collection and administration softwares. These, along with our ERP system, are really the backbone of our department. and the city collectively, these two softwares are responsible for collections of $40 to $45 million a year. So I'll start with sales tax. Sales and use tax is essential for funding many of our essential and core service and programs that our city provides. Unfortunately, our current software has limitations in its online features, such as registering new businesses, free filing options, scheduling filings in advance, cannot automate system run tasks, such as managing missing or delinquent tax filers. So we currently rely on manual administration of these processes. When I arrived in February of 23, our compliance was a little bit lower than we desired. Through significant staffing efforts, we've improved this, but the city would benefit greatly from streamlined and a secure process to ensure our compliance remains high. Our goal is to automate as much of the licensing and filing process as possible, so we can focus our efforts on compliance and audit activities. Automating or eliminating manual tasks better positions us in the future to weather turnover. Furthermore, allows us to spend more time on compliance. Like the highlight over the last 15 months, those efforts have yielded about $2 million in additional audit revenue and penalty and interest to the city. We truly believe that this would be a more effective use of our limited staff time. Pivoting to last week's incident, which has also highlighted the need to examine our utility billing software as well. With the upcoming meter replacement project fast approaching, now may be a good time to align that upgraded billing software with the additional functionality that can provide and security. So finance will work collaboratively with Public Works and our IT departments on these projects, and both Public Works and IT do support this request. My last slide, brief with this too. The finance department's recommending the elimination of our intern program. This position was unfunded in 25, and this cost saving adjustment helps us offset future cost growth. It also allows myself and other managers in my division, my department, to fully invest in our full-time staff. We may revisit this program in the future, potentially with external partners who may cover some of this cost in the future. That concludes my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions from Bill?
So on the last slide. Middle. So. I guess my question is less so for the utility billing, more so for the sales tax software. I guess I'm wondering, why didn't we put this in the budget previously?
That's a really good question. You know, I was just entering my second year, my first year going through really understanding what the product could do, the existing product could do, building up staffing. We had a lot of vacancies for a while, seeing what staffing could do, really analyzing our existing software. I think now fully staffed, all the work we've done the last 13, 15 months has well positioned us to implement a new software system. So I think it's a good time now, but it's a fair question.
And just a little follow-up, the ongoing amounts, those simply to sort of do upgrades each year to the software, or
yeah, it's software as a service now, so we have an ongoing cost to keep that license and continually use it. So it would likely be a multi-year contract.
Thank you.
Did you call on me, Mayor?
Councilmember Dickinson.
Okay. Yeah, so I don't know if you have this information, but curious, is there an increased revenue in either of these expected, or I mostly hear from you just more efficiency, but is there a chance that we actually collect more money than we're collecting right now because of a better system?
Councilmember Dickinson, I would say for the sales and use tax side, of course, we have a lot of manual processes in how we're set up today. So I think there's a few things that an upgraded or enhanced software would do. It would eliminate or reduce manual processes. It would better position us for if we have turnover where we could keep the ship going pretty well versus having things pile up for a while. And effectively allow us to redirect our staff time from tedious manual processes to compliance issues that can generate additional revenue. I think we've had really good success with a full team. And I'd like to keep that going with enhanced software.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Yes, Councilmember Haynes.
If no one else has questions specifically about finance, I have a quick process question. I wasn't able to catch you before. You mentioned you were doing a time check and we still have a lot to go through. And I'm concerned about discussing core services so late. Do we have a decision about when we're gonna stop the agenda today?
I was thinking about sort of giving it 25 minutes and see how far we go. It's a legitimate question. We've got quite a few left.
I'm not certain how the board and commissions conversation is gonna go. Either of those seem like stopping points, but
I would just note that, the reason that we separated this out to tonight, because we thought it was too much to do as part of the budget workshop next week. And so, if council wants to get through these presentations tonight, you can defer either the advisory board or the core services discussion to next, to the budget workshop next week. The core services discussion really helps us to define potential decision points for council, but we are proposing to adopt a budget next week, so we have time on that as well. And so we can go for as long as council wants to go to tonight, and whatever we don't address tonight, we will address as part of the budget workshop next week.
When we talk about the outer bounds, we were here awfully late lesson, so I appreciate council members and the obligations as well as.
Yeah, I was just gonna suggest that we try and get through, we have all the directors here now. We don't have to, so try and get through all the director presentations, maybe we can all try and limit our questions to 30 or 40 minutes each. So we have a chance of by the end of the night.
Other thoughts, any other thoughts? Okay. Thumbs up for you can plow through. I really appreciate all the directors who, I think it's helpful for them to hear one another. I think it's very helpful for us to all of them.
Sorry, I'm wanting to clarify. The decision is to just keep moving, no changes, no, like we're not pushing anything to the next meeting. We're gonna try to just finish it all tonight.
I don't think we're gonna finish tonight. I think the idea was that we just get through the staff. There's quite a few staff.
Yeah, my thought, and I should have been more clear, was to get through the director presentations and then stop before boards and commissions and don't do boards and commissions and everything like that.
I'm over with that.
You have some thoughts before we.
No, I think it's right. If we're gonna do that, I think that's great. And then I think what I will do is drop off because I am on vacation and I can watch this and I don't have tons of comments. And if we're gonna have a more thorough conversation about those last two items on a different day, I'll be there for that.
Right.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right. Any other questions? If not, just keep moving through.
All right, do any other questions for Ryder?
That's what I was asking. I didn't see any. Questions? Yeah, Councilmember Kern.
So You kind of avoided, I think, or maybe I just didn't hear the answer to what the current, it doesn't work. The current monthly cost is, or yearly cost for the software that we have. You put on there is that it's 500 at one time, but 200 ongoing. Is there, do we pay a lot less than that in the current software?
We pay a lot less than that for the current software. They are the same software. We use the same software for sales, tax, and utility billing. It was previously our ERP software as well, which we moved on from.
That's what I wanted to, I was, so it's like $150,000 a year ongoing increase over what we currently do approximately.
Yes.
It's good for us to know moving forward too. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? No, we'll move on. Thank you.
Next, we have Human Resources, Robin.
Hi, council members. Well, no surprise, we have staffing issues in HR as well. So that continues to be a challenging thing for us. We are over a year now without a director, and we've taken on the risk management program in our department. So we've taken on those responsibilities. And then we have 2 part-time staff that we are currently down as well. So we continue to operate with the reduced staffing, and that's of course impacting our ability to service our current staff efficiently. And we've had to postpone some important and critical projects that we intended to do. And then, you know, team is working at a pretty significant level right now too, and trying to keep them from burning out. As far as citywide recruiting and turnover, so obviously we'll keep hearing that around the organization. Our attrition rates are improving, but they're still higher than we'd like to see. And when I say they're improving, I would say kind of since COVID, we looked at like 2019 and forward, because we saw a drop, you know, kind of 2020 and 21. And then, so our 6-year average of our turnover is 20%. Our year-to-date average is trending at 10%. We'd like to see it around 12%. That might be a pretty ambitious goal. We haven't been at 12% in a very, very long time, to my recollection. The lowest in the last 6 years was over 15, just over 15%. So we're hopeful to continue to work through that. So this is a current problem nationwide, statewide, and there's a talent shortage, right? That's no surprise, that continues to happen. We have evolving, you know, expectations of generational employees. Different generations have different expectations, and that's evolving. We have hard to recruit positions, so positions that are higher skilled or higher in demand are harder to fill, so we're struggling with that. We've had leadership changes, so that creates uncertainty in the organization. So people make changes and during those uncertain times. Of course, the COVID and Marshall Fire workload strain led to a lot of burnout. We've seen people turn over due to those things. So that do more with less is not sustainable. Our work culture has changed. Employees' patience levels have reduced. So, and then I talked about those employees' expectations. Different generations have different expectations of what is important to them. We also have seen a lot of retirements. People have a lot more options than they ever used to have. And that's like people are looking for more fully remote positions, or they're doing gig work, things of that nature. So the impact to the city of Louisville, you know, whereas when we see turnover, we have a decreased productivity. We're losing a lot of that institutional knowledge. I think Jenny spoke to that. So you have some folks that have been here a good long while, and they're leaving the city. So replacing them is not just a quick 6 to 12 months turnaround, although that is the general time frame to fully onboard an employee. So this is a struggle for employee morale and engagement. So it can be kind of damaging there. Then also there's increased costs associated with any sort of turnover. So all of those things are impacting the organization and our team. The other challenge we're seeing right now is we had decided to, with the retirement of the previous risk management specialist, we had decided to move that program from the city manager's office over into HR. So we've absorbed those duties, excuse me, and we've had that position posted since March and have had very little success with just even applications. So currently we're just kind of looking at that. We were lucky enough to get that gal who retired. She went on a nice long vacation and reached out, and she's helping us out again. So that's really great. But that only lasts so long. So we'll continue to kind of look at where that makes sense. Opportunities. So no surprise, we want to continue to build and enhance that employee engagement, that experience. So build the stability within the organization, create that positive workplace culture. The strong leadership, I think we're building a really great team, setting clear direction and expectations for staff. I think that'll continue to help build those expectations with those employees. Let's see, so we want to address work-life balance and the burnout among staff. So those people working really hours. We want to continue to remain competitive with benefits and compensation using modern systems and technologies. And then, of course, providing those growth opportunities and professional development. So leading to that, one of our exciting things that we've recently launched is our NeoGov Learn, which is a on-demand learning platform for our employees. So this allows them to have a variety of classes available to them to take at any point in time. Classes can range from 10 minutes to 2 hours. So we continue to build upon that program. Let's see. Operational efficiencies, so process improvements. We have a lot of policy compliance updates that we want to continue to do. We've done a revision to a phase 1, if you will, to our handbook, our employee personnel guidelines. And we eventually would like to do a full reboot of that policy manual. So we continue to do that. We want to continue to enhance our current internal and employee facing policies and processes to make for that better experience. And then again, those leveraging those modern tools and systems. So HR doesn't have a lot of tools available to us. So currently we have paper records for employees. We're currently working to get a robust onboarding system. We launched it, we're working through it. It's got some kinks, we're working through that. We'd like to see performance management and a true HRIS program eventually as well. So lots of opportunities available. Any questions?
Could you say a word about search for a director position?
Yeah, so it's currently posted. And I believe it was posted week of July 4th. It'll be posted through the end of the month, I believe. And then they're looking to do, my understanding is they're going to do Zoom interviews and then in-person interviews in August.
Any other questions? Right, let's move on. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, Council and Mayor, for having us tonight. So I have a few areas I think my colleagues have touched on several times already tonight, but I do want to add just a couple more. So I think that we have a lot of data. We have an opportunity with the data, and by making data dashboards and analysis more transparent, both internally and publicly, we create healthy opportunities to improve data quality, consistency, and processes. And we're able to make better data-driven decisions as a city. Right now, all of the data is kind of in a lot of different places. It's not something that we can mine easily and quickly, and a lot of it's not clean. So good data being clean is an extremely important area of growth and an opportunity for us to improve in the data-driven decisions that we can make as a city. I think this is, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse a little bit, but guiding process improvement with maximizing application ROI and digital modernization. Many of the tools we have here in the city, we have almost 100 servers. That means we have almost 100 applications that we ourselves support. That's not cloud-based systems, that's applications. We have so much untapped potential within those applications that we're not capable of either having the time to process improve with, or having the opportunity to change processes to better utilize the technology. And it's an extremely big opportunity for growth for our organization. And I will say that our scope and complexity of IT support, so I think the sheer volume and depth of systems that we have to support in IT, it's making it challenging to be able to support it properly, and requires a wide range of expertise. For a lean team of 8 people, this means constantly prioritizing and balancing high demand with high quality. So I recognize that every single department in here, I think, has touched on needing additional resources and people. But I think in IT, we have to have a conversation around, we're keeping the lights on and we're committed to keeping lights on, or do we want to really enhance the value that we're providing to this organization? And I think that we're at a place where we are doing a pretty decent job of keeping lights on, but we really want to be able to provide and give the best technology experience to all of our end users and the community members that we serve. So definitely an area for growth. I'm gonna call, I didn't know what to call this, but I called it digital pack rattery. So we are digital pack rats here at the city. I think the Y drive, don't go there. I'll never let anybody let you go there. We are, it's easy to fall in the habit of saving something and everything, maybe emails, files, outdated systems even, just in case, or maybe because we don't want to transfer data from one system to another because it's very expensive to do. But we have to get to a better place where we are much more efficient with the data that we have, because we can't go into a world of AI, where we can't go into a world where we provide data and allow the community to go in and pick out the data that they want to see without having clean and good hygiene on our data. So, and I'm just going to say that aligning tech with department goals. So our job is not just to manage systems. Our job is to deeply understand the goals and where each department wants to go. So in creating and having new tech and purchasing and upgrading technology, we have to deeply understand what the future state looks like and the vision and where we want to go as an organization and as each department has to go. So we in IT really need to understand that. We need to partner with each department so that we can hear it, because we can't just go behind closed doors and create a technology or implement something without just side-by-side help of each department. Oh, yeah, and we do have an expansion request. We are looking at around $40,000 for just inflationary increases. I'm seeing around 10% across the board from most of our software as a service applications that we have. We have a lot, we'll have our Microsoft upgrade this year, or not Microsoft upgrade, but our renewal of Microsoft this year. We usually do a 3-year agreement with them. Just from what I'm seeing across the board, that's one of our largest expenses. I'm assuming that they're going to be around 10% as well. So.
Any questions for Paul?
Moving forward, is the plan to have the inflationary increases built into your 2-year budget, so that's that?
Yeah, it would be ideal. Ideally, we would have more longer term agreements with each of our software services, so that we would be able to budget more appropriately for those long-term goals. And so we wouldn't have we would know exactly what our increases were going to be year over year. And as things are renewing, we're working to get 3 to 5 year agreements with appropriation clauses in them to allow us to be able to sign multi-year agreements with different vendors. I think there's another area that we're gonna see too, is that most vendors, like our ERP system and things like that, are also looking at not allowing us to host our own systems in our environment and requiring us to go to the cloud. I love the cloud. I wanna go to the cloud. It is extremely expensive. So you are going to pay for 3 to 5x times what you were paying for hosting it on-prem. And so we just have to be careful and mindful of that in our future endeavors. And as we continue to invest in technology, software as a service is amazing. I love it. I use it everywhere in my life and I want to go to it, but it is an additional cost and increase. So.
I just wanted to say thank you, person. That's the first really vocal expression of getting out of asylum. And your department is probably the only that affects every other department in the city, because everybody's using something. So between that and HR, hiring people, those are the two big interactive departments, and I really appreciate everything you do.
I'd like to add that. Just saying.
Let us have our.
See, they're already jockeying about our services, you can already tell. All right, good. You have me this.
No, that's it.
On the previous slide, I'm curious, so related to your second bullet point. Is there sort of a single or kind of top thing that would enable us to make progress there?
Okay. So. We have an enormous amount of manual processes. I think everyone has spoke to that tonight.
Stone tablets everywhere.
Pretty much, yeah. It's baffling, especially as a new person when you come in. I remember that feeling of like, oh wow, what did I just get myself into? It's an incredible feeling. I would say that if I had one area that I think could make a huge difference, because I think it's people, process, and then technology. Technology is amazing and it does wonderful things, but if you don't fix processes and change management with people, you are not going to be successful with the technology. And I actually think that might be what we're seeing a little bit of with so many of the technologies we have. We're implementing 10%, we're implementing 50%. We're not implementing them full on because either one, we have a project and we start and end date it and we don't continuously improve the technology and the processes around it. And that could be it, or we just haven't taken an opportunity for a really long time to evaluate the processes. So I would love to do process evaluation, and I think that process improvement, looking at what we're currently doing, analyzing it, identifying it, putting it on paper or digital paper, if you will, and then talking about what it would look like in future state. And that each department has those areas of expertise, and we have different, domains within the organization, and all of them deserve to have the opportunity to have their processes evaluated. I think it's really easy when we all come in and we're in our own worlds and you're doing your job every single day. I think it's really hard to step back and look at what could we do better and what could technology do, or what could we as people do better or stop doing as well. So I think process improvement and so business analysis would be my biggest area. I think that we could get a lot of bang for our buck.
I guess part of my question, what I wanted to be part of the question was sort of, so I think we take that as the top thing. What would enable you to get that done? Just target.
I'll take a crack at that.
Yeah.
If you don't mind. I think part of what I see from the director level down is a lack of capacity. So as we talk about service levels and right sizing the organization for the service levels with the community, it's not to build capacity and then just stuff other things in there. It's to build capacity so that the directors can take a step back and work on the business, not in the business. And right now there's not that capacity to be able to take that step back and really work on processes. So every time that I mention a process or somebody else mentions a process, it's that immediate reaction of like, oh no, here's another thing that we just have to fix. but it's such an important piece of just spending the time of mapping them out. But all of these individuals in this room, top down, there's a lack of capacity within the organization because they're trying so hard to meet community expectations.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Don and the mountain that you're climbing. So it's true for everybody. It's a mountain.
Adam.
All right, good evening, everyone. Try to be succinct. Diana offered me the opportunity to have 2 slides. So you're probably seeing things that are missing from what you would consider a challenge or an opportunity, since most of my challenges and opportunities have been debated in the public forum for the past year. Lots of attention on my department. Kind of a polarizing department, which that word didn't make the list, but it's kind of an ongoing theme. One first challenge listed, this is in no particular order, is sustaining service levels longer term. I think we give a lot of attention to the GMMP and our park staff, acknowledging that they're 5 FTEs short of a national standard to provide adequate service to our community, and they're currently providing above average service to our community. Again, that combined with the funding formula for that particular division, it's not a sustainable model, potentially. But what gets lost a lot of times with the sustained service level, and the reason I put it on there, I'll just go through kind of each area as an example. So golf pre-COVID was doing around 20 to 25,000 rounds a year. They're now pushing 50,000 this year with an additional maintenance staff and a 32-hour golf ops staff member added to that. So staffing is one thing, the wear and tear on that facility with the staffing combined, it's kind of a recipe for a really difficult challenge moving forward, whether it relates to infrastructure wearing out, you need to replace capital infrastructure, the enterprise fund kind of hindering the ability to get reserves to really properly repair that course with that level of demand. It's just gonna be a challenge. Open space, we've been blessed with the passing of the 2C ballot measure and the additional funding that came with that. We've added 2 new staff members. It's made pretty clear via the emails you've received and the open space expertise that's in this community, but that's not sufficient for properly managing long-term the amount of acreage that we currently have, let alone potentially trying to acquire as the priority of acquisition continues to rise up as something for our future. And so sustaining with what we currently have, what we potentially will have, and even being able to meet the expectations of the community with the staff that have been added. And that division is going to be a challenge. Recreation has nearly doubled our sports enrollment and nearly doubled our waiting list over the past 7 years since the expansion, with no full-time staff expansion. That's all absorbed in-house. Again, we're currently doing more business, more people through the doors at that rec center than we were doing right after the expansion, ribbon cutting and the excitement around that. And that's due to staff's high performance, it's due to high quality programming, it's due to affordability, it's all the things that go into that. But again, is that sustainable with our current model? Is our financial model going to work to replace and renew that facility as it ages quicker because of the appreciation of the high use? So that's just what I mean by sustained service level. Sustained funding formula, the finance committee is familiar with this. The Parks Fund obviously isn't structurally balanced as of next year. And so there has to be some type of an action, either a service level reduction to reduce the cost coming out of that particular division or a revenue influx from somewhere else. Golf also, I wanted to highlight that it doesn't get the same level of attention, but as I mentioned, within this next capital cycle, the ability to do any kind of substantial capital work out there is going to become increasingly difficult because we just don't have the money to set aside for a fund reserve. And so things like replacing the greens, full replacement of the bunkers, aging irrigation infrastructure, pond maintenance, all these things that cost a lot to run the golf course, they're completely separate from the clubhouse topic that everybody likes to talk about, is also going to be a challenge moving forward if we continue to have this the enterprise fund setup for that particular asset to the community. I mentioned the high programming demand and limited space. This is both in the center and out of the center, obviously, as Councilmember Dickinson likes to bring up. We are the only community in the area that doesn't have multi-surface and multi-use field. So we've got a ton of demand for sports programming that we're just not able to achieve. If we are going to achieve it, we're going to be modifying park space to allow them to use it, which then expedites the damage to the parks, which then feeds into the issues that we have not enough staff to effectively maintain the park space. So it's this weird balance of trying to provide service to the community. Programming demand in the center itself, again, we've seen multiple complaints about the parking lot being too crowded and the facility being too crowded. And then we received just as many requests on the back end to increase programming or bring in other programming that we don't currently offer. So it's just a lot of demand. It's a challenge, a wonderful challenge to have. I'd rather have that challenge than the challenge of why don't you have anybody using anything that you provide. But it is a challenge. Staffing quantity, full and part-time. Again, that's a similar story to what everybody's dealing with here. We obviously have more part-timers than anybody. And so there's the constant evolution of the part-time workforce, maintaining competitive wages, being able to recruit the next generation of workers. It's a real challenge throughout our entire system, not just recreation, lifeguards, and stuff like that, but seasonal parks employees that are vital to our operation. Seasonal golf employees, same thing. Aging infrastructure is across the board. Believe it or not, by the time we get through this next capital cycle, the expansion rec center will be 12, 13 years old already. So that doesn't even count the depreciation of our parks assets, which we keep going back to, doesn't have a capital source right now to fund the depreciation and replacement of that aging infrastructure outside of what's already been allocated. Golf is the same thing. I've already kind of mentioned that a few times, but everything's getting older, everything's getting more expensive. And we're expected from the community and from our electeds, as I would expect, to still be able to use that aging infrastructure in a way that provides the exceptional level of service that this community has come to expect. So that's going to be a challenge. Competing priorities and community expectations. This is part of the polarizing word that I continue to use, but things like, every topic that we have seems to have a 50-50 split on what we should or should not be doing. Things like pesticides, the way that we're managing our open spaces. Is it for fire mitigation? Is it for preservation? Is it for restoration? Whether or not we should be maintaining our parks in a certain way and having functional turf versus non-functional turf, the look and feel of our medians, all of these things with the community. It's not the community expectation so much for the level of service, it's the community expectation for what they want to see out of our department. Other competing priorities for things like programs, that's where you get inline rink use versus pickleball, tennis versus pickleball, building soccer fields versus building water park, all these kind of competing priorities for services that are going to come out of our department. Resources for time and project management. You saw one of the requests this year for staffing. That'll be an ongoing request if it doesn't get filled this year, is a continuation to grow our project management team. We're blessed to get the approval and the support for a number of projects. About 80% of those projects are falling to one staff member right now, and that's just, it's not sustainable going back to the service level, internal and external. So eventually we're either going to have to reduce that capacity and reduce that number, which obviously impacts services, or we're going to have to add staff and support to help that position get these projects checked off and get the community what we told them we were going to do. Which leads into the last bullet, which is the lack of a formal long-range planning document, which I appreciate council support getting that off the ground. It's overdue. It's overdue for a number of reasons, but it's also pushing back a lot of our other vital planning documents, specifically that Mr. Jones likes to talk about with our open space planning effort and the open space land management master planning effort, how that feeds into all the subsequent plans for that particular division, in addition to all the other divisions that we have that we're trying to use this long-range plan as a guiding tool. We do hear from the community a lot that we need to speed that up and that we know what the community wants. And then we continue to be told by the community that what we're doing is not what they want. And so hopefully this long-range document does a good job of, at least giving us a guiding document and council and city manager direction on how we're going to move forward with our prioritization of projects. We don't have a ton of expansion requests because we have a really robust work plan and really robust and nicely approved budget for next year. So the only thing we've added to our effort here is Al Park fence replacement. This was found out during the rebuild. This is the park at Pine and Owl. We cannot, Rob and I have both been out there. It's really hard to determine if the fence, which side of the property line it's on and or whose maintenance responsibility it is. And so old photos we found shows that the fence was there before the neighborhood. So we're going to take ownership of that. We're taking ownership. It's unsafe. It has a lot of damage from the fire and it needs to be replaced. So we'd like to add that to next year's list. And then the holiday lighting restorations is something that Samna was working on with some of the council members after last holiday season. This would be a restoration of trees that we had reduced the number to save money during the last budget cycle. Things like the rec center, but also an expansion down Main Street on both sides of the road past the museum. And it would also keep the lights on longer into the season and not have them aligned with the stock show. It would go longer into the winter. We just received a lot of feedback that really adds a lot to downtown's vibe. Thus far, as an initial reaction to the Parks Fund potentially being short going into 26, we've reduced one of our professional service lines that has a little bit of flexibility in it by $18,000, which has some to be determined service level impacts. Again, that's kind of an as needed professional service line that trends have shown that we haven't been using the full allocation. So hopefully it has minimal service impacts. And we'll be continuing to work through other level reductions depending on how the Parks Fund discussion goes through the next budget process. So.
Nice work. A lot of information. Appreciate it. Questions? Yes, Councilmember Hannon.
Mr. Mayor, Director Blackmore, thank you as always, for the work of your team and all this information. I was curious on here, not seeing any challenges or opportunity as it relates to our senior services and senior center. Is it smooth sailing right now, or because the city manager only gave you 2 slides?
Yeah, it fits well into the programming demand and the growth of that service. Again, they're pumping all the time, every day. Our meals are at full capacity for what our caterers are able to offer. We have incredibly limited space. What I didn't mention is the demand for meeting space. That's a community-wide issue, but the rec center tends to be where we go to for that. And our 80–90% of our meeting space is in the senior center area. So, we don't have a ton of demand from the seniors after 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's just kind of been conditioned to when they know whatever they want to have isn't happening there. So there's probably some growth opportunities, but there's only growth opportunities if we have something to offset the demand for evening meetings and use of the center. So I would say that it is an opportunity more than a challenge. I don't think we're so at level with that level of service that it would require the same attention as some other areas, but it's also the highest, fastest growing segment of our demographics. And so it's going to be, as we have this conversation 10 years from now, it's going to be a really hot button topic.
That's helpful. Thank you. I look forward to speaking next week.
Only the best scoopers. We have new and improved scoopers again. Thank you in advance for scooping.
Person.
We got to bring everybody else up to your level with a better scoop.
The service levels easy. Yes.
You are a super person, Councilmember Hannon. Just right. Any other questions? Yes.
I just wanted to point out that you did accomplish 2 things so far this year in Sunflower and Enclave Parks.
Yeah, that was a big win for the community. Appreciate all this.
They're wonderful, amazing places. So thank you.
Good. You still feel that way 4 days later? Everything's good?
It's good.
Good.
My granddaughter loves it.
Okay, good.
Also, I'll be at the ice cream social, the senior ice cream social tomorrow night. So
Serving or eating?
good question. I haven't decided yet.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilman.
So is there an opportunity, this might be more of a question for Diana Ryder, for the restoration on Al Park? And I appreciate actually you guys taking the time to look into this. It's been like many months now of residents asking about it, so thank you. As to can this go to the insurance? Can this be covered somehow? Is it too late for us to be putting it in insurance?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know who owns that fence, but I can certainly look into it, talk to our insurance folks. try to
What is our
figure it out.
deductible? Our deductible.
I don't know, Pam.
I was just thinking, it's worth to look into for almost $20,000 to have to repair it. And are we also keeping, some of the wildfire mitigation products in mind when we're restoring this? So that
We
in
can,
keeping with like the hardening codes and that we're asking our residents to participate in, it'd be, I think, encouraging for them to see the city do something soon.
So the fences aren't within 5 feet of any of the buildings, so.
But they still got damaged.
Well, I don't think they have fire damage. That I'm aware of.
no, they lost 2 segments, but the majority of this replacement is just due to aged breaking
Oh.
fence, but yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you very much. If you want to-
So we're slightly out of order on this last part of the alphabetical order, so it would be police, but now we're going to be first.
Yeah, so next year will be correct and I'll get the last.
Yes.
Yes.
Or we can flip it, and we get to go first.
Either way, I could be utilities and public works and just trump.
That's-
Anyways, looks like I'm Captain Kirk today, so bring us journey. I would echo what everyone said. Actually, I don't even know what everyone's saying. We're fine in public works.
Great.
No. We echo all the same things. I mean, we really struggle to stay staffed. We don't have a bench, so when we lose people, it's generally for 6 months to a year, refill or reload, and so people step up, and that it just seems over time that used to be one-off and now it's a regular occasion, so it's a fine line. I think another thing that hasn't been said here about staffing and positions is we have a really good benefits package for time off. And so that, and then FMLA and all these things, and so those are things that keep people, but generally, when you're fully staffed, you're already down like 20 to 25% when people are using the benefits. So when you go down a position, you're kind of way down, you're in a hole. So we're not really staffed for our benefits, and then we get vacancies, it's hard, so echo that. And then the staff we do hire in, as Robin said, there's talent shortage out there. So we're often having to grow people and get them experience. And if we're lucky, we keep them for 3 or 4 years, maybe 5. But often the experience and the things we're doing here, because of our high service levels, makes them attractive for other people to cherry pick them. So we're constantly just trying to balance that. Often you would say like, okay, outsource to consultants, that'll fix that issue. Consultants are having the same challenges. They can't get staff. They have young staff that are inexperienced. So you spend a lot of money on a consultant, and then they give you a lackluster product. And then sometimes we end up having to redo a product that we paid for, or you guys are unhappy with some of the products we bring forward. How do we get here? So it's like a double whammy. Red Tail is a huge burden on us. I mean, everyone wants to get them live and get things vertical. That's a huge priority. Their consultants are a mess, so they take a lot of our time. We're trying to hold their hands, get them over the finish lines they need to. And then I would just say, you've heard space about like the museum and golf course clubhouse, which are old and necessary. Well, one's non-existent and one's old and needs something. But then there's just space citywide. We've heard things about meeting space. I think if you just walk through City Hall, you get a 360 on how people feel about their office space, like that would probably not come back well. We know we have opportunities with if Red Tail Ridge gets fully vertical and we get those fees in and that revenue, then there are plans for like a city services too. So that could alleviate some problems. Then I would also say like City Hall is a really old building. Between all the things we want to do with maintenance, because things have become obsolete, or solar, or efficiencies, I think that building is like worth $3 million, and we probably have $3 to $5 million of investment we got to put into it just to bring it up to par. So we really should be thinking about, are we putting good money into a bad building? And should we be thinking about City Hall? And can it activate Main Street even more? Or should City Hall even be there? Like, I know these are big ideas I'm throwing out, but these are things that like, I think we just haven't talked about that need to come out.
And then just the construction environment. I've been in public works for 24 years with cities now. This is the hardest environment I've ever been in, to get quality contractors, to get pricing that's either guaranteed or that you can rely on. Like, it's incredibly hard to, like, paving is kind of a commodity project, and that's pretty easy to estimate, and it doesn't move around a lot on us. But any of our other like projects, like the treatment plants and whatnot, it's incredibly challenging to estimate a project accurately. And like in our budget process with 2 years, like estimate a budget accurately 3 to 4 years in advance, like that crystal ball really fades that far out. But that's really the age of, we try to refresh and keep up with it. So those are just challenges, and then delivering things on time. You know, we just simple things like HVAC units. You go to get an HVAC unit, it should be a quick project. You got a 6-month lead time on a piece of equipment, and then the people that come out and install it can't even install it correctly. So just a ton of challenges. So those are our challenges. Our expansions are really just kind of either Red Tail Ridge contingent. Bottom one, the wastewater plant operator trainee. So that's an expansion of staff. If we expand that plant, there is an agreement that will be in place with Red Tail to expand, but they're also starting to backpedal on that. So that's another thing yo-yoing, but everything else is just kind of inflationary things, or we have aging equipment. So the raw water op professional services is actually more money towards water conservation and sustainability. We want to get aggressive with water conservation. Climate change is obviously making things hotter, summers are longer. So we want to start getting people thinking that way. That was also an area where we felt like we could allow the ADU tap fees to be free for water, but we wanted to get reductions on water usage through that structure replacing turf. And we also see it as an opportunity to back people off on water. So water conservation, support our sustainability and long-term cost goals. Biosolids hauling is just inflationary. Parts repairs, maintenance, the plant is getting older. We're starting to see more things breaking. We're actually having problems with equipment that should have a 10 to 15 year life cycle, and it's starting to fail at like 5 to 8 years, even though we're maintaining it. Like, the quality of the equipment we get is just not as good. I mean, we did a project, and within 1 year, something had failed on a $200,000 project. The vendor replaced it, like, but their just manufacturing processes are not what they used to be anymore. COVID really killed that. And then SCADA is just our computer operating system that runs the whole plant, automated. And so just constantly using that system to optimize the process. And then as we grow out in our industrial areas, trying to measure more of the contaminants that are coming into our plant to make sure we understand what's impacting us and contribute to all of those. So yeah, that's.
Questions?
Cool, moving on to police, great. No. Thank you for hearing us direct these out.
Yeah, well, this is, I mean, I will say just, this is very sobering, all of this, and I mean, it's great to hear. I mean, we were expecting to hear the detail. This is good detail that we get, so it's, you know, delivered right during the time we need to hear it. Right, trade. So thanks again.
Yeah, again, thank you for the opportunity to give this information. I did deliver a presentation to council back in February, which kind of encompassed our department overview. Most of that information is in the one pager, so I'll kind of skip those details. But obviously, for our primary challenges, identified recruitment and retention probably being the number one challenge that we face. In December of 24, we were at full staff across the department. So we're really proud of that accomplishment. That was a really big milestone to reach. But we anticipated that would be short-lived. And now 6 months later, we do have vacancies throughout our department. So it just continues to be an ongoing struggle and challenge for us. An example as well is finding good qualified applicants for our officer positions, right? We had our job posting for police officer opened in April, but we've only had 13 people apply for that position. So during interviews and application screening, we actually were able to find 2 qualified candidates. Did offer conditional job offers. They did accept them, but they have since reconsidered. So now we're back to square one. So we have no applicants right now in our current officer process. So again, it's a challenge. We have to try to strategize, develop different approaches to our recruitment to try and get those positions filled. So that's just kind of a real world example of where we're at. We also know that there's a cost impact associated with hiring and continuously hiring officers. So we did some research and looked at our numbers, and we have found that for a cadet or an officer, it's anywhere from $60,000 to $75,000 to bring on a new officer into our department. The onboarding process for a cadet is about a year from the point that they apply to the time that they become part of our effective strength. If it's a certified candidate, we're looking at about 6 to 7 months to get them out to solo duty. So there's a significant investment on the department, both in hard dollar and soft dollar costs, but that's what we're seeing. And so the cycle continues to repeat itself. So again, looking at strategies for that. Currently, our vacancies are senior administrative assistant, code enforcement and animal control position, police support technician. We're down 3 officer positions, and we're made aware that there's 2 current officers that are in the final stages hiring for other agencies. So that potentially will put us down 5 officers. So again, it's numbers that we're trying to work through, but really that actually follows some of the trends that we've seen over the last several years. So looking at turnover rates over the last few years, our highest was in 2022 with 28% of our staff turnover. Last year we were at 14%, so that was a significant improvement. However, year to date we're already at 16.5%. So so we anticipate if those 2 officers end up leaving, that'll add to those numbers. So again, we're trying to work through it. HR has been a great supporter in terms of recruitment and supporting us throughout the hiring processes, application screening. So kudos to HR for helping us navigate that challenge. The next one is the aging patrol vehicle fleet. We have 17 of our 31 vehicles in our fleet that are due or overdue for replacement. And so city policy shows that a 4-year lifespan for a patrol vehicle is typically when we should be considering replacements. We have vehicles that date back to 2012. So we're running with some old vehicles that are deteriorating. Cost of maintenance is increasing year over year. And again, officers are spending 10+ hours, 8 to 10 hours in their vehicle. That is their office space. And so the condition of those vehicles being driven 10 to 20 hours a day by different officers really does create kind of a work environment that really isn't the best for people. So the previous chief had presented a CIP request, and I believe it was one to 2 vehicles replaced over the course of 5 years. I refreshed that last year through a new CIP asking for 5 vehicles per year for the next 5 years, which I thought would address the need for really what is a core piece of equipment for our patrol staff. It was reduced from 5 to 3. So you'll see on some of the expansion, that's one area that I'm looking to hopefully increase in terms of budget amendment. Let's see. So I do want to address the city's sustainability initiative, and I know that there's been discussion about potentially if this budget amendment is approved, that would allow us to purchase 6 vehicles instead of 3. So we're currently allowed or budgeted for 3 vehicles. If this amendment passes and we're allowed to purchase 6, the idea is to put 5 new vehicles in patrol and 1 administrative vehicle. We do support the sustainability initiative. We do support the electrification of our fleet. One pain point that we've identified, or possible pain point, is the lack of a rapid charging capability for our patrol fleet. So for administrative vehicles, there's no problem there. We have 3 level 2 chargers that have been installed. I know that there are plans for additional charging infrastructure for the city. However, to purchase 5 new EVs and have a situation where we have to deploy them, for example, to Lions, like we did last year, to help us in fire control and some other events that happen outside of our area, if that EV is on a deployment for 10 or 12 hours, it's running with its emergency equipment on, it's probably running, potentially climate control, things like that. If that vehicle loses charge, where's the infrastructure charge? So So that's one of the concerns that we have, and it's not that we're opposed to EVs. I think that we will definitely support that. It's just right now, we don't have the confidence in the infrastructure to make a wholesale purchase of that many EVs all at once. So the plan is to purchase at least one, if not two EVs next year. Again, an administrative vehicle, and we do want to purchase at least one patrol package that's EV capable. But again, we'll look at those options depending on this. So just a couple of other things for challenges. These are things that I identified when I came into the position. You know, a lot of people leave smaller agencies because of the opportunities for career growth and development. So we have actually implemented several different things to provide opportunities for our staff. So we do have an EV patrol program. We're looking to expand our investigations units to become a part of the Boulder County Drug Task Force. We've increased our representation on the Boulder County Regional SWAT Team. We've implemented some administrative technology through some software systems to improve our efficiencies. We've improved some equipment, some technology across the board. And so we have created some of those opportunities for our staff. We know that we can't provide the same opportunities that a really large department can have, but we can do them on a smaller scale. So we're working to try to create some of those opportunities continuously. The high service level expectations with limited capacity. Again, there's a lot of tasks that are placed on people, and we kind of keep piling those tasks on individuals. And again, it could lead to burnout. It could lead to some other problems in which maybe they're not giving their full focus to one thing, but their attention is divided amongst many things. And they're not able to do those things at 100%. And we do anticipate an increase in service demand over the next 5 to 10 years. Red Tail Project, University of Colorado property, mental health partners, those are all going to be demands on our service capacity. And I know that in 2022, the department did a staffing assessment. And at that time, it said that we should be adding people in order to create opportunities and to maintain service levels. There's not been really a clear strategy on what growth for the police department looks like. But the thought is we do need to be planning for the future, because as the region grows, as our neighbors grow and develop, those people are coming to Louisville. And so we have to be looking at that and trying to do it strategically as opposed to all at once. So that's another challenge that we're planning for, that we're trying to present. Opportunities, we do have a very motivated and committed team. Those that are here, that are looking to stay here, they're committed to the betterment of the department. They're committed to the service delivery to the community, and we can certainly use that resource to build upon improvements throughout our entire process. Council and community-wide support. Again, I can go through a laundry list of things that the council has supported since I arrived here. You know, we have co-response, we have increased and improved technology, we have a really good, strong, robust workplace culture, and I think that's a credit to the council support as well as the community support. So we're very appreciative of that, and we do know that we work in an environment that is very supportive of us. And that's not always the case across the board. So we do appreciate that. And then we'll continue to build upon our recent achievements and improvements. And then finally, we did publish our guiding document, which kind of outlines our plan over the next 3 years. It's aspirational, but it also sets a good foundation for who we are, what type of department do we want to become, what are initiatives that we would be looking at. So that's partially a recruitment document, but it also kind of guides us as we move forward in the future. And then the expansion requests really just touch on what we believe to be two of the primary challenges that we face. So again, purchasing 3 additional vehicles above what we were budgeted for. And then through an analysis, we found that our officer pay was kind of the most, I guess, had the biggest gap. We found that we were about 8 to 10% behind the officers' pay bands, really across the state. In our region, we're about 8%. Across the state, we're about 10% below. So, based on that market data, that could be impacting our recruitment. That could be impacting our retention. And so that's where that request is basis for.
Questions? Thank you, Chief. Questions? Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, I just want to be clear on one point. So is the lack of fast charging really the only impediment you would say to having more EVs?
I would say so. I think based on the Patrol EV that we have now, as far as performance, we don't have any issues with its performance. It's just really, planning for the worst case scenario, like if we do have to have sustained deployment of the vehicle or vehicles in an area where maybe there isn't a charging infrastructure, or, if a vehicle is out away from the station throughout the day because that officer is just busy call to call, they don't have a chance to come back to the station. That car has to be turned over to the next shift. So then you're looking at a 4 to 6 hour charge time for that vehicle. So that's again, it's worst case scenario. It's not what we've seen operationally. So I think they can work. I think that there's another model out there that we want to look at that we think would be even better, a little bit more viable option. It's bigger, has more space, and so it's an SUV. It's a Chevy Blazer. And so it has more of the space needs that we've seen from our patrol.
And then I think I would add to that also, we need to get our generator situation figured out, because in an event like a multi-day outage, you can't lose your police fleet because generator. So there are things to figure out. I think it makes sense for these guys fleet for a while, and they do turn their fleet over enough where by like just internal combustion engines now, they're not gonna be in our fleet for 20 years. So they will come out at an appropriate time and we can review technologies. They should have a nice fleet for a while.
What about a hybrid?
Yeah, so when we purchase vehicles, we do ask for hybrid options. The Ford Interceptor does not have a hybrid option. The only option is an EcoBoost engine, which I don't know, I mean, that's about as close as we could get to a hybrid type vehicle. But every time we purchase a vehicle, if they don't have an electric option, we do ask if there's a hybrid version.
On the previous slide, the bullet point about high service levels of the capacity. I was just wondering, is there an example or something that you could pick out?
So yeah, I mean, I can speak, I guess, for myself. There's been many times where I've gone out because there's been a citizen concern relay. So I physically go out and check on the situation or make that initial contact. And I don't mind doing that, but I also feel like, if I'm working on the overall management of the police department, like to take time out of my day to leave the office and go see a situation or a concern, maybe that's more appropriate to give to a patrol officer, or the patrol officers might be busy with calls and they may not have time to do it. So it's just balancing our time, our limited time, to be able to meet all needs. And it's not just me, it's all across the board. So I can talk about like our crime prevention specialist. Like there's an accessibility project going on right now in the city. And so my crime prevention specialist from our department has been tasked to be a part of this accessibility project. So that's not necessarily within his purview or his job. He is communications because he also does our public information, but we're adding additional tasks that might be outside of what the job description or the true role is, in lieu of having somebody to cover that. Another example is grant management. So finance is a great supporter of grants, but I'm typically writing grants for our department. I'm typically doing a lot of the reporting. I'm typically doing a lot of the grant management with finance and support. But the city as a whole doesn't have necessarily a grant manager because capacity doesn't allow it to happen. So those are some examples that I've seen, 2 years that I've been.
Other questions for this council?
Yeah, thank you. Great presentation. Appreciate also the detailed information they got earlier today, putting it together by your staffing, meetings and recruitment issues. I was curious though, you compared your staff with others in the state and regionally. Are they also having similar turnover issues, or are you finding it's lower levels because they're able to offer more to their officers?
Yeah, so I know that some agencies are still having challenges filling positions, but it actually is improving across the board. And I think we saw that last year when we were at staff. Our neighboring jurisdictions, they're down, their vacancy rate is a lot lower. So they're recovering from some of the trends that we saw, 5 years ago. But what we're seeing is now our staff, they're leaving us to go work store because they can make money. And and the bottom line is it should never be about money, but I think it's, we don't do this service type jobs for the money, but we also have families to support and lives to lead. So I think that they're seeing it. And we have had a lot of people in the department, like they've waited several years for some type of improvement. They're holding out hope for it. And, there are people that get to a time like, you know what, I just can't do it anymore. I'm gonna take that opportunity. So some of the people that have left recently have left specifically. They love the department, they love the community, they love the work environment, but they can make $10,000 more down the road. That's kind of the opportunity.
And just a big thank you to you and the department for all the community. There's a reason that you're supported. It's the great work you do for those companies. Thank you.
Those questions? It's been a really, really deep information intense session. And I want to thank all of you for making that good, because I know you're faced with the time and pressure of trying to get us information in various sources. I know your city manager has been pushing you on all of that.
Brutal, man.
In an appropriate level so that you can operate at peak performance, because that's what the city, our residents are pushing for. I know that's what the city manager is pushing for, and we know that that's what you are pushing for. I think we can't say that enough, that the work that you all do is important. And I hope that you are able to credibly and consistently make clear to your folks that we deeply value the work that you do. Being a public servant, from my standpoint, is one of the highest callings there is in our society. And everybody needs to pay the rent. But you all got into this business for reasons other than making a lot of money. Go somewhere else and do something else, and probably more money than making here. But I just appreciate the care and the commitment, the seriousness with which you're taking your jobs, and that the seriousness with which you're taking the current financial challenges and still looking for the opportunities in there. And, there's going to be more discussion around that, but others may have other comments, but I just can't say enough about how much we appreciate and how much we understand that you are stretched and still pushing. And we want to be supportive of you. And I presume that through the city manager, make the concerns known to us, and best to consider them and react appropriately and feedback to our residents. Because they're a piece of this too, maybe the most important piece. So anyway, I just wanted to make it from my perspective. Other comments? All right, we will, for me. Before we do public comment on what has been said tonight, do we have anybody signed up for that? Is anybody here wanting to make public comment? Please, come up front. First contestant. Here sees my gray hair.
Watch the court.
It's actually colored.
That's a joke. So thanks for doing all this. I have three comments and it kind of goes together with what was on the agenda that you had wanted to comment about. First, I just want to thank staff for doing what you do. I think the challenges I heard today, I heard a lot of the county, not me, but the reason we got by the county was great staff. So thanks for all your work doing that. That feels the same way here. So that's the first thing. The second thing, staff positions are being considered packet in the open space department vision, and the board of trustees recommended a project manager. It's really needed. There is a project manager in the department as well, but they're very stretched. We need one to address open space needs. It's the second thing. The third thing has to do with the core values. I know they're pretty set now. Two thoughts. One, just a question. One of the filters is environmental sustainability. Is that for the built environment and the natural environment? I would hope so. Citizen survey at open space is the fourth ranked thing at 33%, and it's not, otherwise it's not represented in any of the core values and filters. I'd hope to do that would happen. And in that vein, I think there's a ton of deferred maintenance in open space. It's just natural lands, and it's not, but you don't have the development budgets and the one-time things, but these are deferred maintenance on lands ecologically that have not been addressed in years. 24 years I've been around here. And all you gotta do is go out and look at the vegetation, something has been left in poor shape, it's probably purchased and never fixed. So we have real needs for that, and I'm just hoping that it will support that. Right now, we're way behind, hasn't been supported in the past. Well, I think we're turning the corner with the cattle grazing on Davidson Mesa is a good example of that. It's a great program to try to restore the grassland and work on wildfire issues as well. So I'm just hoping you keep investing, because we're way behind. So thanks very much, and thanks again, staff, I learned a lot about the city. That's part of the reason I wanted to hear tonight what's going on, because all I'm talking about basically two things. The space is the amount of houses in the comp plan seems.
Thanks, Pat. Yeah. Seeing none. Motion carried. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much. I believe